Yeah, hi guys. Doggy, move, dog. Oh, one too far. One too much. No, I've got to go easy. Go live videos.
All collectively agree that a young girl should be out there in war.
May I have a carbon neutral espresso?
Oh, come on.
Discover Lavazza's first carbon-neutral aluminium capsules. Excellence for a better world.
Let's move on to this next story, which is Ukraine locking down Zelensky in the United States. So President Zelensky of Ukraine going to Washington, D.C. for the first time. The war now 300 days old in Ukraine since the start of the invasion by Russian forces. But of course, it's been going on for 8 years before that with the genocide that's been carried out in the Donbass.
Yeah, the barbecue was a bust. It was a dud barbecue, so I quit early so I could come home and stream.
By the Ukrainian soldiers with the help of NATO forces. That's been happening for 8 years, lest we forget that. On this show, we actually pay attention to true history. So we'll have more on Zelensky's trip in a moment. But first, Ukraine is on the verge of collapse. Zelensky knows it. And the Ukrainians know it, but you're not allowed to talk about it. If you do, you get in trouble. You're not allowed to talk about it. The Ukrainian government is now enforcing stay-at-home orders. Do not leave your house. Lockdown, sound familiar? You're not allowed to leave. I know you don't have electricity, you don't have wheat, you don't have water, you don't have heat. You're not allowed to leave your home. If you do, and if you're even talking about it, you will be punished by the Ukrainian government. No electricity, no energy by other means. Wow, what are you going to do about it? Ukrainians are being told to stay home, don't leave the country. It would lead to a mass migration.
Hey, I don't think Russia will attack NATO. I think NATO will do a false flag on Russia, and Russia will have no choice. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Russia will attack NATO first. If America starts fielding soldiers into the battlefield in Ukraine, that's war.
Crisis. Oh, now they're enforcing this? Now Europe wants to push Ukraine to maybe make this happen?
Yeah, and I like this channel too. I haven't been playing it because I'm scared of going against community standards. But now I know how to delete the video when I finish. I'll just delete it when I hang up because I only stream to hang out with you guys. I don't care what happens on my stream after I hang up.
Poland is about to collapse with 4 million immigrants from Ukraine inside of Poland. 4 million. A government that cannot handle it is absolutely collapsing right in front of our faces. We learned today from Ukrainian sources that Zelensky's regime is trying to pretend that nothing serious has actually happened, that they have already prohibited citizens from talking about blackouts. If you're a Ukrainian citizen, and I've heard from you, so you can, any of you want to reach out to me, I'd love to hear from you, but I know you're not allowed to talk. You don't have electricity. You probably don't have cell service either. You're not allowed to talk about these blackouts publicly. Shh, don't let the world know about it. You're not allowed to talk about it. They pretend that those without electricity are part of what they're calling the unfortunate 1%. It's just 1% of you. Just 1%. There's like 1% of you that are without power. Really, it's not true at all. Zelensky keeps telling us that he's winning. We keep hearing this We hear this in interviews, right? We hear this in the Economist interview. We're winning. We're on the right side. We're pushing them back. Russia's on the, Russia's crumbling. They don't have food. They're crumbling before our eyes. We're winning. This will be a winter of our winning. His general Zaluzny telling us that they're winning, but they're lying. And now the Ukrainian general Zaluzny is threatening its soldiers with fines, or worse, if these defections continue. Defections, soldiers running away.
No, that's Russia.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
that's Russia.
Sorry.
You're wrong.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I should have read my propaganda notes from CNN that I didn't get in front.
Actually, defections is not running away. Defection is leaving one army and joining the other. That's what real defection means, military-wise.
No, actually, I'm just checking my notes again. No, it says here it's Ukraine, according to the actual video that we have of the general Zaluzny threatening soldiers.
Yeah, Han, I don't trust Bibi Netanyahu, but he's far right, which is much better than far left. If I had to choose the two evils, I'd go far right, not far left. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
With fines.
He's put in there for the last days. He's going to be ruling Israel in the last days because we're already in it.
Or worse, if these defections continue. Yes, Ukrainian military throwing down their weapons and are running away. And we saw this a number of times throughout the summer. Now it's worse because now they're freezing. And their general in charge, Zaluzny, just yesterday issued an order calling for fines or worse for soldiers running away. Watch.
Армія тримається на дисципліні. І якщо прогалини в законодавстві не забезпечує її дотримання, а відмовники можуть сплатити штраф, розмір якого становить до 10% бойових виплат, або отримати покарання.
Okay, you can't see the writing there, so he's saying if there are loopholes in the law, if those who refuse can pay a fine of up to 10% of their pay or get probation, this...
Ні. З випробуванням це несправедливо. Більше того.
This, moreover, and this key, other military personnel are forced to cover the exposed areas of the battlefield. So he's saying these whingers, they're going to need people to cover their place because they're not fighting properly. Because they haven't got the equipment.
А голені ділянку фронту змушені закривати собою інші військовослужбовці. Which leads to an increase in the loss of personnel, territories, and civilians living there.
So, if you run away, we've got to find out. Now you're going to be fined for it because we don't have the people that now you've given over this land. So that we're going to fine you for that. And so Ukrainian soldiers are releasing videos now. We saw this over the summer and in the spring. You saw Ukrainian companies releasing videos saying, we don't have weapons, we don't have food. And then there was like a kibosh put on those videos being released. There was like something, I don't know, came from NATO or something. And then suddenly we stopped seeing those videos being released by the Ukrainian military saying, hey, Zelensky, we don't know what you're doing. We don't have food. We don't have weapons. We don't know what to do. We don't have any support out here. And then it was kind of quiet. We haven't seen any of that for quite a while until now it's freezing. And here's an example of soldiers releasing videos showing that they are freezing, and they're telling their own leaders that they will hunt them down. Not Putin. We're going to come after you, Zelensky and Zaluzny. So to be clear, Ukrainian soldiers telling their general, we're coming after you. Watch.
I want to send greetings to Mr. Zaluzny and our star Zelensky. Is it warm out there? Why don't you come and take pictures with us? Maybe then you'll bring something to eat. In videos, you say that everything is fine, that the soldiers have no need for anything. Guys, is it possible that we're the only ones in this? What the F are new assignments? It's not the orcs that are killing us, it's the cold and the sinitis. Where are the reinforcements? The commanders ignore us bluntly, and also a-holes, they try to scare us. Put us in jail already. Only they say that guys don't survive the trip to jail. Remember, we will definitely come back. We will survive. And not for the sake of victory, but rather to hang you faggots in Kiev on a pole and pray that Russians get to you first. Wow. The way you might at least say, Wow.
people.
These are human beings whose leadership, of course, is
Wow,
putting them out as
yeah.
cannon fodder, right?
Who still
and
wants
also,
this to go
they're both-
on?
Han, they know they've been hung out to dry. Hearing call Zelensky a faggot, because I don't mean to be rude, but he done that gay video music thing in the leather and all that. He is homosexual, and Putin calls them homosexuals as well. Homosexuals, Nazis, he calls them.
They're most likely kids too.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? That kid sounded, he sounded 19, maybe 20, you know what I mean? He's a young voice. That is a
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, someone came at me on Twitter for saying something like this. So there was a viral video where a Ukrainian soldier was doing like a TikTok dance. And I was like, that looks like a girl. I'm pretty sure it was a girl who cannot
Yeah,
be
it
more
was.
than 15 or 16. And this war needs to end now. We can't all collectively agree that a young girl should be out there in war, or a young boy, or anybody who's,
Especially with those dancing skills, because she was amazing.
Yeah. And somebody was said, you're a Putin apologist. And I said, because I want the young girl to live and not be, yes, because what you just said was give Putin anything he wants. And I'm like, but what you said is give him her life.
Right.
And I can't understand how saying, I do not want to see these people suffering anymore, and I want this to end now. I want the chips to fall however they fall so that the war ends, means that I'm pro-Russian or pro anything other than just that young girl's life.
How does somebody come at you like, how dare you?
How dare you
defend
speak
their
for
life?
her? That's literally what the exchange was, is you just said you want Putin to get what he wants. Because I said, her life is worth more than this. Peace talks now. Oh, you want Putin to get what he wants then? I'm like, then you want her to die?
Next, you're going to be calling for UK nurses to get paid what they're worth. How dare you?
I know, I'm crazy like that.
Unfortunately, it's just that with people, when you hear them say that, I know that they've been propagandized. And it's like, it's really hard, because I still go back to the thing where it's like, they're listening to the media, they're reading things on social, they have no frame of reference. They're not like us. They don't go down these rabbit holes. They're just getting fed information by who they think they can trust. They think they can trust the media, but they cannot. So I try to not, get upset with those people as much as I can, but it's like, it is frustrating, because how propaganda is winning this war on social.
It's been the ultimate propaganda war, and that's why so many people are brainwashed.
Yeah, Diane, about 2:15 my time, he goes live. Once Paul goes live, he takes about 45 minutes. So yeah, that works out good, because this Redacted is interesting. I was going to play carols and then do Mike from around the world, but I didn't think that. I just thought this would be better, and I can do carols tomorrow.
About this.
And now we can't even be sure that it wasn't the U.S. government doing it. So if you refer to our show yesterday. Yeah. So how do I know it was even a real person?
Yeah. Like you were saying, like they've been talking about how they were taking U.S. stuff down, but there was not a single instance where we saw anything about taking down Russian information that they were saying was the problem.
Yeah.
Not one request.
No, and of course, all of this, let's be honest, all of this was created by NATO, right? All of this was created by the United States and NATO. And this is a fact. They have to reap what they sow now, right? They created this mess. 4 million Ukrainians now having to leave Ukraine and going into Poland, and Poland is collapsing. And you're seeing this across Europe now. You're seeing Europe collapse, right? And the United States is sort of sitting back, and they will reap what they sow soon enough. They're in the throes of collapse as well. But of course, Europe will come first. The collapse of Europe will happen first. And again, this is all their fault. Perhaps that's why Zelensky just flew in to meet with President Biden this afternoon in Washington, D.C. and speak in front of Congress. Yep. Now, we got confirmation of this overnight. It was kind of a last-minute thing. Zelensky tweeted this out. On my way to the U.S. to strengthen resilience and defense.
Yeah, Diane, that's why I said 2:15. Yeah, thank you. I do. Yeah, thank you for that.
Capabilities of Ukraine. In particular, President of the United States and I will discuss cooperation between Ukraine and America. We'll also have a speech to the Congress and a number of bilateral meetings. So then Zelensky arrives. He was greeted. I love this. He was greeted on the tarmac here. You think, oh, he's going to meet with President Biden on the tarmac? No. Who's he meet with? That's Rufus Gifford. That's who they sent to meet him. They didn't even send Kamala Harris to meet him. Rufus Gifford is Biden's protocol officer. Like, something's changing, guys. Like, We're now sending Biden's protocol officer to pick the guy up at the airport. That's like sending the butler.
What's a protocol officer? I want one.
I want one. That sounds fun. I want one of those.
Yeah.
A protocol. I need a protocol officer. If there's one person that needs a protocol officer, it's me.
Yes.
I need a protocol.
They teach my kids to do their chores on free school days.
I thought maybe it was just because like Clayton's maybe like socially awkward at gatherings and he doesn't just know the proper protocol for doing things, and so maybe that honestly might be what a protocol officer does, is make sure that they understand like international customs and things like that, so that you can.
I thought it was just
meetings,
more.
I don't know.
No, send them the
Hello.
protocol officer.
That's Pelosi's last day in office, apparently. I think she got thrown. She's no longer the House Speaker. I'm pretty sure the Republicans took the House by a short majority. Is that right, guys? If so, goodbye, Nancy Pelosi.
So that on the drive to the White House, you can tell them, hey, make sure you don't
Yeah,
wear that
I
ugly
thought
green
so,
sweater
yeah.
at the White House. It's the White House. You're meeting with the President of the United States, for crying out loud. Don't wear an ugly green sweater. It's not a Christmas party where you wear the ugly Christmas sweater. No,
When I was a teenager, if I was mouthing off as a teenager, my dad would go, Natalie, do you have no protocol? No sense of protocol? This was like the word.
You need a protocol droid.
I needed one.
So Mark McKinnon points this out. He says, looks like Zelensky flying to Washington on a U.S. Air Force plane. Yeah, dramatically reduces the possibility of anything happening to the president on his first trip abroad since the Russian invasion began. So I don't know if you noticed that plane in the background a second ago.
I noticed it.
That was, that's a U.S. We sent a plane to pick him up and rolled out the red carpet for the guy.
That's a nice Uber.
There wasn't just there wasn't like 5 people in there. Like, how many people you think were in that plane? How many services? How much did they pay the pilots? Like, how much did that trip cost us? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. We'll lump it in with the $45 billion that he just picked up this afternoon. Yeah. So here's how CNN, CNN's ever effusive about this. They love this. Oh my God, our guy is showing up. Our guy, Zelensky, is coming. Because CNN, of course, a mouthpiece of the intelligence community. This is how they welcomed Zelensky today. Like, fair and honest journalism here at CNN. Watch.
Joining us now for perspective on all of this and how significant it is, CNN's chief international anchor, Christian Amanpour, who interviewed Ukrainian President Zelensky and the First Lady of Ukraine actually last month. Christian, this is just incredibly significant. I mean, it's been 300 days. He has not left Ukraine. And now his first trip outside during this war is to the United States.
Absolutely, Caitlin. And of course, the United States is his biggest backer, and he has thanked them over and again, including in my interview, and thanked the American people, knowing that it is taxpayers' money that is helping Ukraine with the weapons that it needs. This is an incredibly important punctuation point because of where we are in the war, because of the change in seasons. You know, many have likened and have pointed to Winston Churchill, the famous British World War II leader, as the epitome and the example of a leader during wartime. And many over
Here's the Churchill comparison.
The war in Ukraine,
he's just like Winston Churchill.
Compared Zelensky and his wartime leadership to that of Winston Churchill. And most.
Oh my God, give me a fucking break. I'm sorry, give me a break. Like,
annoying.
Oh, so Zelensky is demanding that citizens stay in their homes without a stable supply of food, water, and heat. But Zelensky using this as a propaganda tool to raise money for back home.
Well, this comes after FIFA over the weekend refused to play a clip that I did not bring to, where he wanted to issue a statement about Ukraine right before the World Cup final.
Right.
And FIFA said, no, we're not getting involved in this and we're not playing this. And the Ukrainian government gave them on Twitter, they said, you still have a few more hours to decide. You still can do the right thing. Show Zelensky's message. I did watch it, and he's saying, every father wants to take his son to a football game. We should have a world where that's okay. I propose this peace organization, but that's not peace talk, so he's not actually moving towards peace. But I do think it's telling because the Oscars and the Grammys can have him or his, representatives on, and FIFA is saying, no, we're not choosing sides in a war, in a football game. Too much politics.
Well, I have a question really quick about going back to the plane really quick. Is that considered a military jet? Like, did that military plane land in Ukraine, or did they pick him up elsewhere? Like, because isn't that kind of like
in Poland?
in Poland. Okay, I was going to say, because if that landing in Ukraine, that's like the United States actually moving in a military vehicle. Am I not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
They
right.
picked him up in Poland,
Yep.
so he took a train from Poland, from Kiev into Poland, and then from there we put him on a plane, and then gave him a limousine escort to the White House. Byron York pointing this out. According
Hey,
to
Lynn,
the
good to see
Associated
ya.
Press a few minutes ago, Zelensky is going to tell Congress that the $48 billion that we're giving them right now in this new bill is not enough, according to Byron York. He says the AP reporting this, Zelensky is apparently prepared to tell Congress that whatever the U.S. has given Ukraine, $45 billion in new aid under new consideration, is not enough. And a reminder, Olena Zelensky, of course, when she went to Paris just recently, this was confirmed. She went and she was there asking money from Macron. Turns out she went on a shopping spree in Paris and spent $40,000 in a shopping spree while in Paris, while demanding that we give her more money. So she's in Paris.
Well, you can't go out asking for more money looking broke, man. Come on.
No,
That's like
true.
That's just like you request 101.
That's like requesting money, like failure 101. Like how do you or like if I'm gonna ask somebody for money, I don't wear a tux and pull up in my Bentley and be like, hey, can I have some money?
Like you need to have like you need to have like a little tin cup. Yeah, like a little tin cup, and you put on like glasses to make you look like you're blind.
But glamour is an important part of her look. She has to look Jackie O.
Mm-hmm.
And they realize that she's an asset. Even 60 Minutes said that they weaponize her.
Yeah.
Because she's beautiful. And I understand it from a propaganda standpoint. Absolutely.
So Glenn Greenwald this morning tweeted this. The U.S. Congress is about to send another $44 billion to Boeing, Raytheon, and the CIA for the war in Ukraine. That's a total of $100 billion sent by the United States in 10 months. The entire Russian military budget for the year is $65 billion. So Zelensky's schedule, visiting the White House for a meeting, sitting down with the president. He did that. He showed up. Before that he got there, though, I don't know who did it, but all over D.C. this afternoon, there was like an army of people going around flagpoles and light posts, putting up the Ukrainian flag all over Washington, D.C. Get those flags up, and also make sure that they are higher up than the American flag. Like, they're higher on the stand than the American flags. So all these Ukrainian flags, we just have them everywhere. We're going to go stick them all. Look, let's stick it higher than the American flag. All over D.C. today.
That's actually true. It is higher than the American flag. Wow.
So, and I wanted to ask really quick, when Zelensky's doing these tours and he's asking for this money, does he ever break down what it's for, or does he just say, I just need money? Like, it doesn't matter what it's for, like weapons or whatever, but is he ever specific as like where that money is going?
He has before given us a laundry list of, these guns, these bullets, these things.
Like these things we want. We want HIMARS, we want these things, we want this type of weapon. And then they get all destroyed. Or they're, again.
Diane, I saw that link, Biden opening up a portal. Well, I didn't watch it completely, but wasn't he going on about gay marriage and all that? I'm pretty sure that was what he's doing.
The Patriot missile system, we had Scott Ritter on the other night saying that they don't work. They've never worked. It's been it's ridiculous. And you need actual number of human beings to run the things. That's going to be a total disaster, but that's what he wants. So here he is showing up at the White House. Here he is officially meeting with President Biden and Jill Biden. He wore his best Christmas sweater. So he couldn't even, for the president of the United States, all of the billions that we've sent the guy, he still has to wear this ugly green Christmas
sweater. We know
sweater.
his wife went shopping. Why can't he dress nice too? And
yeah, exactly.
She bought him new green sweaters.
Oh, okay.
So here is Biden and Zelensky sitting by the fire. He's got his Ukrainian garb on. And here's President Biden basically telling him that, Russia continues to attack civilians, and that's their mission. And we stand behind you. Listen.
Want to save $262 per month? You can save $262 per month on your home loan if you refinance.
The attack on innocent Ukrainian people for no reason other than intimidate. And he's escalated his assault on civilians after these schools, orphanages, hospitals, landmarks.
All debunked.
And he's trying to use winter as a weapon. And but the Ukrainian people continue to inspire the world. I mean that sincerely. Not just inspire us, but inspire the world with their courage and how they chose.
Yeah. So he says that Putin is attacking schools, churches, theaters, civilian targets,
hospitals,
okay,
orphanages, anything that grabs your heartstrings.
Yeah.
And anything that grabs your heartstrings, they're attacking.
Orphanages. Yeah, like Tiny Tim is, like he literally is going after like blind orphanages.
Yeah.
In there in the war room. If that's an orphanage, take it out.
Take it out.
So, good question is, why weren't those evacuated if you had all this time, prepping for war and all of that? Clayton and I were discussing this tactic of a leader wearing military garb and which leaders in history have done this to great effect, and what is it showing us? Because he's now thousands of miles from the battlefield. I thought originally it sort of meant I'm here too. I'm capable of taking up arms too. But in the White House, it's just sort of a Franco type move. Like
I
a
just
leader.
feel it makes him more relatable. He's like
Fidel Castro.
He's not in a suit.
Like Fidel Castro, like he just wears fatigues every day and a hat. Like I said, it makes it very easy. It makes it very easy to like go to your closet in the morning. Like, what am I wearing today here in Ukraine? It's cold.
Maybe those of you in the chat can think of other leaders who dressed out like a baseball coach.
Well, people are going to be like, oh, but he's so modest. He doesn't wear suits. He doesn't have these really expensive clothing. He's doing his job. Like there are people that will mean something to you.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. He's there. He's constantly working. He's deep in the trenches. But what I wanted to bring this home on this point, which is what we heard from a couple of White House officials over the past 24 hours. And it's very, very subtle. I want to play this video and see if you can pick up on where this new tone of this war and what this means, because they know what's about to happen. They know that Ukraine is about to totally be wiped off the map. And they know that Putin is about to unleash a massive winter offensive to finally put an end to the genocide in the Donbass and secure that section of the country. So we know what's coming. Here's where the way the Biden administration is now sort of playing this thing. Listen.
We are in a new phase, if you will. This winter's coming. Mr. Putin has stepped up his attacks on civilian infrastructure, civilian targets. Air defense capabilities are now the most important capability that Ukraine needs and must have to help defend itself. So the president really believed that as we approach winter, as we enter clearly and have been in a sort of a new phase in this war, Mr. Putin's aggression, that this was a good time for the two leaders to sit down face to face and talk about not only what the United States is doing now and will continue to do going forward, but how we eventually try to work towards what President Zelensky has called a just peace.
So you do think that the two leaders today will...
So did you catch it there? The new phase, multiple times saying the new phase. So now you're going to hear this from the White House. You're going to hear it from, mark my words, tomorrow you'll hear it from Jean-Pierre at the White House press podium. The new phase. You'll hear it from President Biden. That talking point is now going to be out there. So what's this new phase? What is the new phase? Well, it'll be interesting to hear what this new phase is. We're going to give you billions more. They just secured $45 billion, sending more weapons. We're doing additional training now of Ukrainian soldiers. What is the new phase? You're going to be stepping down as the president of the country, and we're going to install our new puppet. I mean, I don't know. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern.
All right, one of my monitors went to sleep. Probably it saw my bad attitude and was like, I'm out of here. You stay. I'm going to be professional. I told you I'm a bah humbug, but I'm going to be professional. Are you ready? Here we go.
Okay. Try to pull it together.
together.
pull it together.
Okay.
Hey, we got a newsletter, daily newsletter. We're going to be writing the newsletter tomorrow, so you'll receive it tomorrow. That's going to be our last day of doing the newsletter for the year, and then we'll start up again in January. So we're going to take a few weeks off. We're going to decompress. We're going to be doing some crazy stuff here in the studio, rebuilding things, making this show even better for the new year, doing a lot of blue sky, thinking about what we want to do. But the newsletter will still be produced. So please go to redacted.inc and sign up, put in your email address. Again, it's totally free. And I get emails from all of you on a regular basis, so thank you for your kind emails. You have to verify the email. So it'll be sent to your inbox, might go to your spam folder, verify it, and then tomorrow morning you'll get the newsletter bright and early, and this will be, again, the final newsletter of 2022, and then we'll be back in 2023 with a brand new newsletter at the beginning of the year. But sign up. It's free. Redacted.inc is the place to go. Not .com, .inc is the place to go. And if you're watching the show right now, please subscribe because your name will pop up here on the big Santa board. We'll see the new Rebels popping up here. If you subscribe, it should pop up here during the live show. All right, let's dive into our top story. This is the greatest example. I mean, we are watching the greatest example of propaganda, I think, in world.
Diane, I haven't got Rumble. Can you send that to me on Skype, please, so I can watch it on Skype?
History.
Probably already have.
History. And going back, I'm thinking, can I think of a better example, a bolder example, a more brash example of propaganda in any historical event? And I can't think of it. And I think overwhelmingly there will be a media analysis done of this war at some point by somebody, and we will know that this by far eclipses every other war, every other man event that includes propaganda in world history. And the greatest actor on that stage is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky made good on his promise to demand more United States aid during his trip to Washington yesterday. We picked him up in an Air Force private jet from Europe in style, fully catered. We took care of it, right out of our budget. Upon arrival, we sent a limousine.
Yeah, and they're intellectually on the same level, so that's good as well. Yeah, they are a sweet couple.
To the airport to take this amazing actor to meet with the President of the United States, and then he did not disappoint. Upon his arrival, he received a standing ovation like he was going to the Academy Awards for his amazing acting skills that helped destabilize Europe, destroy Europe's energy system, drive the American dollar and economy off a cliff. Here was that moment and that standing ovation. Here he comes. There he is. It's just, it's almost like watching a State of the Union address. Like we're waiting for the president to come down the aisle for the State of the Union. Let's everyone clap. Oh, everyone wants to touch him too.
Yes.
Everyone wants to touch him. And who's that? Everyone wants to touch him, and you get their hands on him. I want to see the man in the green sweatshirt. It really is an amazing moment. I mean, and he did not disappoint, because then he turned an amazing performance where he admitted that Ukraine has beat Russia. Listen.
And it gives me good reason to share with you our first joint victory. We defeated Russia in the battle for minds of the world.
No, I think that line, it really struck me, because I'm like, you're admitting that it's a war of propaganda.
Yes, exactly.
If it's just that we're trying to get people on our side, that's not a win. That's just a rallier, right? Like, I talk to my kids about this a lot. When you're in a conflict and you need to tell everybody to get people on your side, that doesn't mean you're right. It just means you're better at gathering people on your side.
It reminded me of Jeb Bush. Remember when Jeb Bush was running for president, and he was at that one event, that town hall event or whatever, and he was like, so I'm going to do this. And everyone, no, it was all crickets. And he goes, you can applaud that. Go ahead and clap for that. And people are like, oh, okay, we're supposed to clap for that moment?
The clapping did seem very synchronized, as if it was supposed to be punctuated at certain points. The part we're going to get to when we tell you about how, they want death. Congress is applauding more death. That was a standing ovation. This, though, I thought, That's not, I feel like in this day and age, we should be proud when we see through propaganda. So to say we've been able to market this war better than Russia is essentially what he just said. And I was like, I can't believe he said it, but at least thanks for being honest.
Yeah, we won the mines. We beat Russia in the mind game. Like, we didn't actually beat Russia. We're being destroyed by Russia, but we beat Russia in the mind game. But actually,
in the popularity contest.
So this is the part that, I mean, it totally pissed me off. Like, it really pissed me off. I about threw my Paul Pelosi hammer at my computer this afternoon when I saw that.
Okay, Lynn, no worries. Enjoy.
As what he just said is a bald-faced lie. Anyone with more than 3 brain cells knows that. A new study recently found that most of the world believes it's Ukraine and NATO's fault for this war. Most of the world. Perhaps in the United States, you have a lot of ignorant people that watch CNN who believe that Russia is to blame for what happened. Again, the propaganda war. So it's working. It's worked in parts of Europe, but most of the rest of the world absolutely knows what actually unfolded here. So how did we get here in the first place? Just a little context. The CIA-driven effort to build an insurgency in Ukraine began as far back as 2014 and 2015, training neo-Nazi groups as a militia against the Russian people, the Russian population. And it also had broad domestic implications for the United States at the time. Of course, we were able then, because of this puppet regime that we put in place, we were able to put in 46 different bioweapons labs in Ukraine. We were able to buy up large swaths of land, put in all sorts of manufacturing. George Soros funded also. I mean, the list is endless how this helped the United States with our puppet regime in Ukraine. So, but viewers of Redacted know all of this. They know all too well that in 2014 and 2015, NATO and the United States, led by the CIA, installed a puppet government in Ukraine. They then trained neo-Nazi groups as a militia to carry out attacks in eastern Ukraine. They then spent 8 years carrying out a genocide against the people of eastern Ukraine. These are not just ethnic Russians. That's a misnomer. These are also Ukrainians who wanted to live a peaceful life in their home, on their farmland, in their towns, in the Donbass.
And the people in Crimea as well, who felt that they were Russians until the reestablishment of the Ukrainian government came and stamped their passports and changed their passports when they didn't really want that.
No, they didn't.
And so for feeling that way, that they were and wanted to continue to be Russians, they were tortured.
And so you, Zelensky, at the direction of NATO, NATO leaders destroyed their way of life, without a doubt, destroyed their way of life. And if you want to spend 5 minutes researching it, you can. You'll have to dig for it on Google because it's suppressed, but it's there. You can read all about the genocide if you want to, or you can continue to be like a CNN ignorant crowd, but not this audience.
It is fastly disappearing from you, from your Google searches, though. Those are the types of things that now I have kept PDFs and put them in certain places.
Yeah, you can't find it.
In duplicate places because you don't know what storage, type things that I'm using. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that the West wants you to forget.
Oh, I have a whole archive. That's the thing. Anytime I come across something I need to save it because I know it'll be disappeared. Like, that's what happens with this stuff. You want to find this information, gone. We have a whole archive now that we have to keep for this show because it gets suppressed and blocked. So anyway, you, sir, Mr. Zelensky, were responsible for destroying the people's lives in this eastern part of Ukraine. You, sir, are a war criminal standing inside of the United States Congress.
Yes, but our last few presidents have all been war criminals too. So that's the spot where they stand.
They're in good company, right? We have Obama as a war criminal.
Bush
is a war criminal. We have these guys. You have Zelensky as a war criminal standing in the halls of the United States Congress asking American people for more money to carry out a war against innocent people. Like,
actually, Trump did not wage new wars. So
no, he's the only one to not start a new war.
As whatever you think of him, when I think of it, I was like, well, no, Trump is not like Obama. He did not go off and kill more people.
No, there were plenty of things that, we can talk about drone strikes.
Let's not get into
anyway, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. But here's a war criminal standing inside of the United States halls of Congress and demanding more money. This speech was aimed purely, directly at ignorant people, the fools that would applaud this kind of bullshit. That's what this speech was for. And yesterday we heard from Moscow. We heard from Russia. Once again, that Russia is ready for peace talks. I think they've said this now every day for the past 3 weeks. We are open for peace talks.
Oh,
We're ready
way
to sit
more
down.
than that. For months, we've reported on it at least once a month.
Yeah, this was part of their press conference yesterday. So, okay, will we hear about peace at all in this speech?
Oh, yes.
Peace talks? Let's listen and find out if we do. Let's listen. Here is Zelensky talking about, well, take a listen.
Are similar to the other tyranny, which is in the battle of the Bulge. Through everything it had against the free world, just like the brave American soldiers, which held their lines and fought back Hitler's forces during the Christmas of 1944. Brave Ukrainian soldiers are doing the same to Putin's forces this Christmas.
So you can bring up a battle of the Bulge.
I'm pretty sure in World War II, Ukraine young men signed up in droves to the Hitler army. Yeah, they signed up in droves.
Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender.
So that, here you go. Up until this point, they haven't been out of their seats, but never surrender. Yes, you have to. This means we want your people to go to the death against Russia. That's what they're applauding for. Never surrender. No, that's the opposite of peace.
So no peace talks then. So imagine that when you want more Ukrainians, that's what you want. You want more Ukrainians to die needlessly. That's what's going to happen. Because if the estimates are that there are somehow 200,000 forces left, which I think that's even being incredibly generous. And if anything, they're young children, like they're not even of fighting age, and literally being thrown to slaughter right now.
Oh, but don't worry, because he says they are very skilled. In this next clip we're going to show you, he says, we don't ask American soldiers to fight alongside us. You send us the gear, we will operate it yourself, as if it's like a blender. Like, I don't exactly know how to use this, but I'll figure it out because it's
like
pretty self-explanatory.
Well, we had Colonel McGregor on the show recently, and Scott Ritter just recently talking about these weapon systems, particularly the Patriot missiles. You need a whole, like, you train for a long time to use these things. You do not just get thrown into this for a week.
No, he says they can handle it, so send it over. Listen to this.
Shields find the biggest range of Christmas gifts at unbeatable prices. Like this diamond bracelet, only $149.
I believe there should be no taboos between us in our alliance. Ukraine never asked the American soldiers to fight on our land instead of us. I assure you that Ukrainian soldiers can perfectly operate American tanks and planes themselves.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You know, I want to play that Dumb and Dumber clip, like, don't worry about it, Harry, I got it taken care of, with like a little zoom. Like, you can't figure, this is not a DIY. You can't figure that out.
Financial assistance is also critically important, and I would like to thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way.
Oh, okay. So that's your peace talks. It's about security.
Oh, no, he brings up peace in a very different way. What he's saying here is that this is an investment in democracy, meaning you are preventing one type of world order from taking hold.
And Ukraine is, of course, the epitome of democracy, right? So what you're doing when you look at Ukraine, not a corrupt government at all, really one of like the shining examples of democracy, where if you have people that speak out against tyranny, state-run media being taken over by the Zelensky government, like they'll duct tape you to telephone poles in the freezing cold. Like that is democracy in action, and so we should all support that.
Philip found a story recently. Philip, where was that reporter from? She was from the Netherlands, who was ousted from Ukraine.
She was in Ukraine, covering. Yeah.
She had a press pass, and she was ousted from Ukraine because she was being too neutral. That's what democracy is?
Yes, democracy in action.
I think she was Danish. I think she might have been Danish. But yeah, she was an award-winning journalist. And what they had problems with was that her reporting was too neutral. So they pulled her press pass, the SBU did, because she was covering both sides. And literally what the SBU told her was, you can have your credentials back if you just do reporting that we tell you to. If you report our information that we give you, then you can come back and do your reporting.
Oh, like the United States Press Corps.
That's cool.
Just like, we featured last night Barbara Starr, the handing you stories like at CNN. So about peace, I guess this is the last clip we wanted to play here of him. He and Biden discussed peace talks.
He says he has some sort of 10-point plan, and he talks about it as peace. It has nothing to do with ending the conflict. The way he couches it, to me, sounds more like security, as in we'll have peace because my U.S. thugs are going to surround me with some money and weaponry. And that's what he calls peace. See if you interpret it a different way than I do.
Russia could stop its aggression, really, if it wanted to. But you can speed up our victory. I know it. And it will prove to any potential aggressor that no one can succeed in breaking national borders. No one committing atrocities and reigning over people against their will. It would be naive to wait for steps towards peace from Russia, which enjoys being a terrorist state. Russians are still poisoned by the Kremlin. The restoration of international legal order is our joint task. We need peace. Yes, Ukraine has already offered proposals, which I just discussed with President Biden, our peace formula, 10 points, which should and must be implemented for our joint security, guaranteed.
Okay, so what I think that means has nothing to do with peace. He said we have a 10-point plan that we will implement with President Biden that has to do with security. That just means I'm gonna, have some lackeys around me.
No, what this means is that Ukraine will become a permanent sort of garrison state for the United States and NATO. It will be think of it like an aircraft carrier. It'll be a United States launching pad, a NATO launching pad, and this country will collapse. So that's what's about to happen here. The security whatever remains of Ukraine after this winter offensive, it becomes like a garrison state. That's really what it's going to become.
Yeah.
So the security of what's left after you march your country to total death. So here's how mainstream media told us, though. It was amazing to read the headlines today from the media. Oh my God, it was like some of the headlines were things like Zelensky goes to Washington and warms the hearts of Washington.
Or recalls us to ourselves as humans, is how the Atlantic put it. Like we were out in the cold depths of soul and the dark night of soul, and his speech recalled us to ourselves. Here's Lawrence O'Donnell saying that this is something that, man on the moon landing, you will remember where you were when it happened.
Well, this was one of those nights when history was made right there in your living room on television. This was the night you dragged the kids in front of the TV so they'd be able to say for the rest of their lives that they saw Volodymyr Zelensky's address to a joint session of Congress and to the people of the United States of America and to the world. There are people...
Like you drag your kids?
Yeah, and look at that lower third graphic on the screen. Zelensky addresses Congress nearly 81 years after Winston Churchill's joint address. Like, they're really going out of their way. I mean, what they could have said, 75 years after Aunt Mildred baked her first cake.
No, he does. He then goes on to make the point that there are some people alive who even listen to both.
Oh.
And that, wow, what, as in people who were alive for the Queen's coronation and her funeral. What a way to experience history. And I will say, should I say this? My daughter was in the room while I was watching this. So I did have a child with me to experience this moment. And she thought I was listening to Despicable Me. She thought that he was Gru. So it didn't land the way that Lawrence O'Donnell, and she was like, "What are you doing? You're watching Despicable Me?" I was like, "No, that's President Zelensky."
No, I can't. Listen.
Don't even try. Don't even try. And I think he's not doing that character anymore because.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm glad you gave that context, because when Clayton read off that headline, I was like, just 2,000 years after Alexander the Great, or just after,
right. Oh my God, it's so ridiculous. And he sat down with his producers ahead of time. He's like, that was one of the greatest, most moving speeches. And at the top of this show, that's what I was talking about. That speech was written, given, delivered for the ignorant masses, right? The people that fall in line with this propaganda, and for whom the sheep, the people they try to keep in line, for whom a show like Lawrence O'Donnell is, red meat for them. Like, this is something they'll watch every night.
Yeah.
They'll watch Rachel Maddow followed by Lawrence O'Donnell. So here's Tulsi Gabbard talking about this democracy in Ukraine that we're going out of our way to defend. Watch.
You have the Biden administration's whole foreign policy is essentially based on democracies and autocracies. We've got to divide the world between these two categories, and the U.S. is going to lead the charge for democracies to defeat the autocracies. And so they have said, hey, Ukraine is a thriving democracy, and Zelensky is this hero that is protecting this democracy, which is why Biden says we'll do everything within our power to support him. And oh, by the way, we're going to send almost 100 billion of American taxpayer dollars to go and support this defense of democracy. But when you actually look at what Zelensky's democracy is, you see no freedom of the press. He has shut down any media that he does not control, his government does not control. He has gotten political opposition arrested, made sure that that's happened. As you mentioned, he shut down the biggest Ukraine church in the country. And I found this quote today. He has actually threatened to punish, quote, any Christian caught worshiping in unapproved ways.
Wow.
So this is the democracy that they are saying, well, we need all of your money, our money, taxpayer dollars to go and defend. This is their shining example of democracy.
And so we did have some breaking news just a short time ago. Kevin McCarthy, the incoming Speaker of the House for the Republicans, has said no on this omnibus spending bill, this $1.7 trillion. So does that mean then that we will actually have a wrench thrown into the works against getting this money to Ukraine now, like this sort of blowback? I don't know.
But it does show an appetite to stop the flow, at least by leadership now, not just fringe Republicans, which, will bring into the conversation a reason why, which is what we are trying to do here. We're not anti-Zelensky. We're anti-dragging out this war, and we realize that there's propaganda behind dragging it out for a reason. But, this investment of time on behalf of President Zelensky, it did pay off, because just a few hours later, here's the announcement from POTUS. Today, I'm announcing the next tranche of security assistance to Ukraine, a $1.85 billion package that includes equipment and ammunition contracts. Contracts is an interesting word. It's not a gift, right?
Right.
Okay. And a Patriot missile battery that we will train forces to operate as part of our efforts to strengthen Ukrainian air defense.
Great. So let us know your...
For temporary yet premium accommodation with expense-saving perks thrown in, contact Accommodate Canberra. You'll get spacious premium service.
Know your thoughts on that. Here's another story I want to talk about. So remember when the Washington Post in September told us how Russia probably blew up its own pipeline? with this laughable article. This is the Washington Post, okay, with this picture of Putin in a submersible vehicle. Like, this is the Washington Post. Nord Stream sabotage mapped. How Putin could have carried out the attack. The apparent sabotage of the pipeline between Russia and Germany may well have been set up months ago by Russia.
Speaking of Despicable Me.
I love that little submersible vehicle. Like, it has nothing to do with it. It was on a, anyway.
That imagery, though, specifically looks like it's straight out of Despicable Me.
Yes, like he's Gru, like in...
they actually do, in the second one, use machines just like that to go undersea for him to be, like, pulled back into the ring of darkness.
So in that photo, like, he's like, hey, guys, don't take a picture of me. I'm going down to literally map out how I can blow up my own pipeline, which enriches my country, and that we spent $11 billion building. Like, just don't let this photo get out.
Very much implying in that photo and the headline that it wasn't like the Putin regime that did it. No, Putin himself, right, in his little submarine, popped on down there and blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Like, I love that. Like, they really think highly of the guy. Like,
I'm going to plant the bomb right now. I did it. So yes, the Washington Post is a joke. It's owned by billionaire Jeff Bezos. Last week, they had to lay off a large number of employees because their subscriber numbers have plummeted by tens of thousands. I think they've lost upwards of 500,000 subscribers. Really?
Is that true?
You're not paying for the Washington Post anymore? Wow. Now, guess that you have to lay off these journalists. People like, why does Taylor Lorenz still have a job at the Washington Post? They kept her on staff. Anyway, so this is karma for your propaganda, Washington Post. So maybe they learned their lesson. I don't know, because this morning, the Washington Post is now reporting that there is no conclusive evidence that Russia was behind the Nord Stream attack.
Now, it seems that they spoke to about 24 people from 9 different countries, investigators, state employees, heads of state. They could not find it.
Yeah. And we figured this one out months ago. We worked this one out for ourselves, like months ago.
There is a little bit of language in the article if you seek it out yourself. It's like,
we will. We're going to go through in a second.
Oh, okay. Like, maybe, but we're pretty sure no.
So why would Russia attack its own pipeline that it spent billions of dollars to build and then bring them major profits from delivering oil and gas? So let's actually go through this here. I'm going to pull this up. So here we go. This is no conclusive evidence Russia is behind Nord Stream attack. All right. So after explosions in late September severely damaged undersea pipelines built to carry natural gas from Russia to Europe, world leaders quickly blamed Moscow for a brazen and dangerous act of sabotage. So they couched it around that. With winter approaching, it appeared the Kremlin intended to strangle the flow of energy to millions across the continent. An act of blackmail, some leaders said, designed to threaten countries into withdrawing their financial and military support for Ukraine. But now, after months of investigation, do you buy that for a second? Like, the Washington Post has just been really in the trenches. Like, so they've spent months now investigating a story to bring you the truth. So why the hell did you release a story almost immediately with a piece of propaganda and a picture of Putin in a submersible vehicle saying that Russia was likely behind the attack? Like, wouldn't good journalism take months to complete? Why the hell did you rush out a piece of propaganda immediately? Anyway, there's no evidence at this point that Russia was behind the sabotage, they say, said one European official, echoing the assessment of 23 other people in 9 countries that the Washington Post has interviewed in recent weeks. Some went so far as to say that they didn't think Russia was responsible. Others, who still consider Russia a prime suspect, said positively attributing the attack to any country may be impossible.
Impossible, you say?
Really? Forensics on an investigation like this are going to be exceedingly difficult, said a senior U.S. State Department official. I'm glad you quoted a senior U.S. State Department official. Why would it be that difficult? It's actually, these pipes are in relatively shallow water in this area, actually. Not that difficult. Not that difficult at all, actually. The United States routinely intercepts communications of Russian officials and military forces, they say, a clandestine intelligence officer effort that helped accurately forecast Moscow's February invasion of Ukraine. But so far, analysts have not heard or read statements from Russia taking credit for their involvement. Oh.
I mean, that's like that. That doesn't seem very precise way to investigate things. That's like putting on polyjuice potion and trying to, or taking the polyjuice potion, like dressing up as someone else's ally and saying, "Do you want to tell me something?" Like, there's got to be better ways.
Put on like a mustache and I brought my vodka. Would you like to? You have something you'd like to get off mind? Tell me about, I don't know, something that happened in September that was in the ocean. You want to tell me your story? Let's drink, and I'll report it back. So attributing the attack from the start has been, they say challenging from the start. And then they go on to say in this piece, given the relatively shallow depth of the damaged pipelines, approximately 80 yards at the site of one explosion, a number of different actors could theoretically have pulled off the attack, possibly with the use of a submersible drone or with the aid of surface ships, officials said. Yeah, do you know that Russia has come out multiple times and said, we have the footage. Here's the video. Here is the actual footage, and here is the evidence that British dive ships were right there. You want to see them? You want to see that? Because this isn't in our waters. This is outside of our territorial waters.
It does seem like no one sourced in this story is actually Russian. They asked around, if you really were interested, you might call up Russia for their opinion too. It's like, we're only trying to see if we can find a way to pin it on you. We don't want to talk to you at all. Yeah.
So no one
took a page out of the guys that did the study on the Great Barrier Reef took a page out of their playbook. Like, we don't actually want to get the information and go there. We just want to find people that have.
Yes, it's great symmetry.
Sorry. Have you been on vacation to the Great Barrier Reef? We'd like to interview you for our new climate study. So no one was seriously interested in this, and no one really actually believed that Russia was responsible. No one watching this show back over the summer when this all happened and unfolded believed for 1 second that Russia was responsible, especially when you had the United States telling us that they would destroy this pipeline. Listen.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be clear with you today. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one way to have it not move forward, is to blow it up with the help of Germans. So no thanks to the Associated Press, which told us at the time that, hey, if you think that the U.S. was involved in this, caused the damage to this pipeline, that you are a Trump-loving member of QAnon. This is what the Associated Press said. The suggestion that the United States caused the damage was circulating on online forums popular with American conservatives and followers of Q, and a conspiracy theory movement which asserts that Trump is fighting a battle against child trafficking sect that controls world events.
True.
What's hilarious to see, then you realize the child trafficking events that we've now unfolded, how many tens of thousands of child trafficking accounts have been shut down on Twitter, and Jeffrey Epstein goes to prison. It's kind of hilarious that they want to mock this as a fake thing. And it's literally happening before our eyes. And the Associated Press gets off by saying that anyone that thought that the U.S. was involved in this was clearly a member of some conspiracy theory website. Okay. Television was worse. Here's one of the worst human beings on the planet, former CIA war criminal John Brennan, to tell us why he thinks it's Russia.
Do you think Russia's behind the sabotage of the pipelines?
Well, I think all the signs point to some type of sabotage. These pipelines are only in about 200 feet or so of water. Russia does have an undersea capability that would easily lay explosive devices by those pipelines. And I do think it's a signal to Europe that Russia can reach beyond Ukraine's borders. So who knows what he might be planning next. But I think this is clearly an act of sabotage of some sort. And Russia is certainly the most likely suspect.
Yeah, clearly. Thought long and hard about that one.
I just don't even understand how she asked that question with a straight face. Like, you have no context here?
This was not a crime of opportunity. It's personal. Travis Fimmel.
You can really ask that question? Then you are a part of the problem. That shows how much you are asking the questions that the American government wants to spin.
Yeah, exactly. A mouthpiece of the intelligence state. Even Fox.
Well, he also handled that. He also handled that. Sorry, I know, but he handled that so well because she said, "Do you think Russia did it?" And what he said was, "Well, it was done." Because he said, "Well, it was clearly sabotaged." So he said it was done, and Russia has the capability of doing it. Therefore, Russia must have done it. But by that criteria, almost anybody with a working like submarine navy could have done it.
Yes.
Right. Anyone with
and therefore did.
Anyone with a dinghy could have done it. Like by that same logic.
That's
even Fox News got in on the game at the time. There was only like really one voice on that channel who was like, "This is ridiculous." That was Tucker, who was like, "What kind of a moron do you have to be to think that Russia did this?" But there were plenty of morons on Fox. Here's one of them.
Why Russia is most likely behind this. I'm 99% certain of it.
Yeah. The pipeline was clearly sabotaged. Explosive material was found at the explosion location, and German officials say that they believe the responsible party is, quote, state actors. From which state, though, we don't know. Well, we have a lot of theories on this. In fact, well, I won't say it. Some people can't believe that there's no larger investigation going on and happening here.
Well, there is, though. There's one in Finland. There's one. A lot of the Nordic countries are, in fact, doing their own investigations.
That they won't let other people see.
But they have been saying, we have some proof. We really don't want. They don't want to release what they've got.
Sweden know who did it. We know it was the German Green group that was backed by the United States and NATO, and like they did it and they carried it out, and it was all part of the plan. But we don't want to show that. We can't really show that.
All they continue to say is we have proof that it was sabotaged, and we won't say who. And the rest of us are like, cool, moving on.
Yeah, we'll use the eco-terrorists in Germany to carry out our plan. Like, that's brilliant. Like, that's what we do in that's what we do in Syria. We use Al-Qaeda, right? We use terrorists to carry out our plan, and then we get to wipe our hands of it. No, the United States didn't actually press the button. We just hired other eco-terrorists to actually carry it out on our behalf. That's what we do. So here's Nick Wallace. He's Irish, and he's a great guy. He's a member of European Parliament from Ireland, and he's badass. And he just doesn't understand why there's no more larger, transparent investigation into this mess. Listen.
When Nord Stream was damaged, there was uproar from politicians and mainstream media across Europe for about 24 hours. And then it seemed to have disappeared. Now, for the life of me, I was shocked that it could go down the list of major items in the news so quickly. Initially, of course, the Russians were blamed. But common sense kind of prevailed, and they kind of thought, well, if the Russians don't want any gas going through the pipelines, they can actually turn the tap off on their end. And if they want to blow it up, I don't think they blow it up quite so close to Germany or Sweden. So who did blow it up? This was one of the worst releases of methane in the history of mankind. It was environmental terrorism.
Wow.
I, for the life of me, don't understand why the EU doesn't want to know who did it. This is a disgrace. What is wrong with us? This is an unbelievable destructive act, and we don't want to know who did it? Is it because we know the answer? Or is it because it's the wrong answer?
Wow.
Because it's the wrong answer, Nick. You nailed it. He's based. Absolutely based. He and Claire, by the way, I mean, they're, we need more people like him. And, don't make fun of his hair. You know what? I don't care. That guy can go over to my house any day of the week.
I like that hair. I wouldn't make fun of it. But we have to, be equal opportunists. If you're going to wear a T-shirt to Parliament, it's cool, right? Zelensky can do it.
If Mick goes to speak in front of in Congress, I hope he puts on a suit.
And if he doesn't, then he doesn't.
He doesn't. Let us know your thoughts on this. Do you still think Russia was behind this? Washington Post now coming out. Maybe you'll go and subscribe to the Washington Post. We've got more news to get to here on your Thursday. Again, this is the last live show of 2022 here on Redacted, so please subscribe to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, turn on a little bell notification so you'll be notified when we go live again at the start of the year. We'll have content. We have big interviews coming up over the next few days as well. We've got Whitney Webb who's going to be joining us here on the show. We've got some really great in-depth interviews that we're going to be sharing out. We're launching our brand new Redacted History as well, which we're very excited about around here. We're going to look at a lot of really interesting stuff. So please subscribe to the channel. We're going to be talking about this Haiti invasion next because the United Nations just voted on that. So now we're going to be sending troops into Haiti officially. Way to go, United Nations. We're also going to be looking at the latest in Ethiopia and all of this climate propaganda you might have been seeing in the news over the past few days.
But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Ghost Bed. There's nothing better than a great night of sleep, and sleeping on a mattress that's designed for your particular sleeping style can really help. That's why we're excited to partner up with Ghost Bed. Ghost Bed is a family-owned business that's been designing mattresses and other sleep products for more than 2 decades. They know that sleep is personal and mattress shopping can be overwhelming. Ghost Bed takes the guesswork out of the equation with their online mattress quiz. You just answer a few questions about your lifestyle and sleeping style, and they'll recommend the right Ghost Bed mattress for you. You'll get a 101-night sleep trial with free returns for added peace.
Invasion force into Haiti. Yes, you heard me right. The United Nations sending troops into Haiti. This comes after the United States had been begging a number of countries, hey, do you want to go invade Haiti alongside of us? Canada, what about you guys? Justin Trudeau, aren't you on our side? You want to go invade Haiti with us? So now appears there's a coalition of the willing inside the United Nations. The U.S. has already sent armored vehicles and Coast Guard ships to Haiti. Journalist Kim Ives just returned from Haiti. Kim is the English language editor of the Haitian newspaper Haiti Liberté. He was asked to brief the United Nations yesterday.
We visited hospitals, clinics, an IDP camp, an industrial park, wealthy quarters, and sewage-choked slums. I've been asked to present the facts, but the facts themselves are not neutral. They speak to a history in which international law has been violated and the principles of peace and self-determination on which this body was founded have been trampled. These precedents have spawned the current crisis. In the past 3 decades, Haiti has been the victim of 3 coups d'etats in 1991, 2004, and most recently, 2021. After each of these crimes, which involved international actors, the UN Security Council has been asked, as it is being asked today, to militarily intervene in Haiti. The Council agreed to do so in the first 2 cases, thereby essentially cementing in place an unjust and illegal status quo. The victims of these coups, the Haitian masses, were the ones policed, repressed, terrorized, demonized, sexually violated, politically bullied, and economically sanctioned. That is why the 16 million Haitian people, 12 million living in Haiti and some 4 million living abroad, are patently and almost universally opposed to any more UN interventions.
Kim, welcome to Redacted. Why did the United Nations ask to speak with you yesterday, and what did you manage to tell them?
Well, it was really the Russian delegation that brought me in because they see the march to war that the U.S. is carrying out in Haiti, and they fully understand the neo-colonial relationship the United States, as well as France and Canada, have had with Haiti over this past 3 or 4 decades. It's they use the term multi-dimensional crisis. This is the term they keep referring to, which really is Diplo speak for revolutionary situation in the country, because the people cannot survive anymore in their conditions. And of course, the other term you hear is it has to be Haitian-led, which is, again, another Diplo speak for US-led, Canadian-led, French-led, but they're trying to lead from behind and put these civil society people in front as some sort of a facade, a portrait, they would say in Creole. But these people are looking for the benediction, for the approval, for the nod from Washington, from Ottawa, from Paris. And why are they doing that? Well, because that's where all the money is. And why is all the money there? Well, these are the countries which have basically raped the country for the past 200 years. I mean, this was the pearl of the Antilles. As Eduardo Galeano said, their very wealth was what created their poverty. And so the French basically put an independence debt. People may have read about that in the New York Times. Over the course of 100 years, and amounted to about $21 billion. And then the U.S. came in 1914, took all the gold. They came in the following year, 1915, took over the government, gave themselves the right to own land. They took over the land, and then sugar plantations, sisal plantations, rubber plantations, made the land basically barren from some of these crops. And today they're just taking over again. In 2010, Bill Clinton came in, took over the government, said, okay, we're going to put in sweatshops. And now the sweatshops are being put on the arable land that Haiti has, in Caracol, for example. And so they can't grow their own food. So yes, of course, the situation in Haiti is terrible for the people because they've been crushed. And so anyway, I didn't go into all of that at the Security Council yesterday, but I told them, your focus on gangs, on saying that, these are gangs, this is wrong. This is a half truth, I said, because yes, there are criminal gangs due to the debilitation of the Haitian state that they've done over the past 50 years. But there is an emergence in the Haitian shantytowns of self-defense committees, and that's what Jimmy Cherizier and the G9 are. So I explained to them, you can't lump the good guys and the bad guys in the same dang basket. You're just trying to create a narrative, a picture, a scenario that will justify your so-called humanitarian intervention, which is nothing more than putting a U.S. military base in Haiti.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to frame this narrative, trying to create this false story in order to justify putting a military base there and move forces in. In fact, Pamela White, who, of course, is the U.S. ambassador to Haiti, she just recently penned a piece in the Washington Post. She wrote an opinion piece in which she basically demands that media outlets like CNN and other media outlets who do the bidding of the United Nations and, of course, of the Pentagon, she demands that media outlets broadcast images of gangs and human suffering to build support for the Biden administration to send 2,000 armed law enforcement officials, enforcement officers into Haiti. She literally says this in the Washington Post. The media needs to put up images on television in order to justify us sending an armed invasionary force. Like, this is the clown world that we live in, Kim.
Right. Yeah. And she unfortunately doesn't even have the, what shall I say, sophistication to understand that she shouldn't say it that bluntly. But she does have the sophistication enough to say that let's not send them all in at once. We're going to send them in that same piece in 100 or 200 at a time, spaced every 6 months without a lot of fanfare, because she knows the Haitian people do not want any more foreign military interventions. As I said in my talk yesterday.
Okay, it's gone glary. Hang on.
We've done this already twice over the past 30 years. The only place in the Western Hemisphere that has had UN Chapter 7 military interventions, and they both have been disasters. They've created rape epidemics by UN soldiers. I mean, the crimes that were committed by these interventions are legion, are terrible, and of course they're all swept under the rug. For instance, there was a very concerted effort by a group of engaged lawyers to try to get reparations for all the crimes of the occupations of Haiti, not only the rapes, but also the cholera that was brought into Haiti and killed somewhere on the order of 10,000 people, sickened hundreds of thousands more. It's reemerged again now. All this, the result of so-called helping Haiti. So the Haitians say, Thank you very much. No, thank you. As I said, the 16 million Haitians, 12 million in Haiti and 4 million abroad, they don't want an intervention almost universally. The only part of Haiti that does is the tiny, tiny, tiny bourgeoisie, and they would like it very much. So their factories, their ports, their grocery stores are protected by U.S. troops.
What is the end game for the United Nations here? It's to build a U.S. military base, help coordinate a U.S. military base, regime change. What is the ultimate goal, you think, the long run, the 5-year plan for Haiti from the United Nations?
Well, it's really a 10-year plan, and it's outlined in a thing called the Global Fragility Act. And I think you may have touched on this earlier, but it's the new paradigm. That is, the U.S. used to control its neo-colonies with tin-horn dictators, Pinochet, Somoza, Marcos, Duvalier, etc. They found that was counterproductive. It created too many revolutions, too many Che Guevaras. So they moved to the new formula. That was about 40 years ago in the 1980s, and we saw the dictator shown the door. The soldiers were put back in the barracks, and they said, okay, we're now going to have demonstration elections, as Edward Herman called them, where we put in our candidates through the same methods we use here. The candidate with the most money wins. And then if there's any problems, we'll send in the international peacekeepers, the United Nations. Now, this formula worked well for a while, but it started to derail in Haiti with Aristide's election in 1990, and they had to send in peacekeepers immediately to, set it right because the wrong guy got elected. He set an example, again, for Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, Evo Morales in Bolivia, Correa in Ecuador, etc., and it began to make a pink tide across the continent. Again, Haiti always leading the way. So now this formula worked well. They brought in 2 military interventions into Haiti, but it's not working since February 2022, when Russia and China said, look, we're basically in a war with the U.S., and they are saying, you're not going to use the U.S., the UN as your handmaiden anymore. So their new formula is the Global Fragility Act. It's basically a bilateral agreement that they set up with Haiti. Haiti is the test case, the pilot, the guinea pig, the test tube, where they're going to use U.S. troops to come in with humanitarian aid. It's basically a collaboration, as they say explicitly in it, between USAID, a wing of the State Department, with the Pentagon. And so basically you have U.S. soldiers coming in with sacks of rice on their shoulders saying, gift of the American people. So they're trying to create this humanitarian catastrophe. This is the watchword, the buzzword that they keep repeating. Multidimensional crisis, Haitian-led, and humanitarian catastrophe. So their humanitarian catastrophe, again, is essentially a revolutionary situation, and the Haitian people are trying to solve it their way, but the international community, i.e. the U.S., France, and Canada, want to solve it their way.
So I'll get you out of here on this question, Kim, which is, how many forces are we talking about here? Thousands? You were there just a few weeks ago with Dan Cohen. We highlighted here on the show the armored vehicles that were used, of course, to move through and break the fuel blockades. So American armored vehicles already there. But how many boots on the ground are we talking about? Have they already arrived? When is that plan for them to arrive and actually start this invasion, humanitarian invasion with rice on their shoulders?
Well, there are 2 schools of thought on this. Daniel Foote, who resigned as a State Department emissary, envoy to Haiti, is looking more at a sort of a special forces approach. We're going to send in Green Berets to train the police and maybe engage on some level with the Haitian police and engage with gangs, quote unquote, that is the armed people, on whatever level. On the other hand, you have people saying, no, we need to go in with big, massive force and thousands and thousands of troops. So we'll see which way it is. Their biggest problem is they don't want to go in with U.S. troops. The Canadians are a little squeamish about it. They're trying to get some faces from Africa. Kenya is maybe on board. Barbados. Jamaica. So they're trying to bring in other neo-colonies, if you will, to be the front, to be the cops in front of the troops. And we'll see if they're successful. After my talk yesterday, the Kenyan ambassador came up to me and
look up concern. Okay, and it's going to be about CERN, the New World Order, World Economic Forum, a lot of things. But joining us right now from an undisclosed
perfect timing
around the world is Mike from around the world.
Perfect timing. Look at that.
God bless you, Mike. How you doing tonight? Well, if they stay inside, they are. Okay. If they have electricity and if they don't get knocked out because of these high winds, I mean, wow. Are you in a warm place, Mike?
Yes, unfortunately I am. I say that because I kind of prefer colder.
They've got to sort the audio
you
out.
Prefer colder than this?
I went through cold weather training. My core temperature went up and never came down again.
Oh man! But did you get sent to Yakima, or was you up in the mountains of California, or where did you have to go?
We were with training at 10th Mountain Division, and of course, then we went way up there into the nether regions. It was minus 64 degrees where we were, and once your body acclimates to cold temps, your core temperature goes up. Well, it's very difficult for it to come down for me, as it turns out.
So you're kind of hot-blooded now, so you need cooler. Yeah, okay. All right, Mike. Now, last Thursday, could you have Paul turn the phone upside down? I did. I did. Facing it. Is it? Can everybody hear Mike all right? Please turn up my volume.
Hopefully they can.
Yeah, he is. I've got it facing the webcam. Good night, everybody. Let's just. Either you say that I turned the phone upside down toward the webcam, just like you said. Okay, Mike. Let's see.
Were they pointing a speaker towards the webcam?
Yeah. Off my phone, because I'm on the road tonight, and so.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
So I think everybody can hear you. I've got it cranked wide open. I don't know if I can turn it. I can't turn it.
I'm all the way up too.
I could look and see if Israel. Can you go to you're broadcasting Israel? So look where it says the volume on the settings.
Pastor, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Well, I'll go to the settings, but it's for me. That's on my end, not yours.
Okay, if you go to
you'll have to go into your settings.
I go to my settings right now. I go to my settings.
So what you need to do is turn your mic up to maximum, but then you need to talk softly because your natural voice is a lot louder.
Over here. Do you want me to turn that off?
I'm sorry?
I got echo cancellation on. You want me to turn that off?
Yeah, turn that off and then turn yourself up really loud, and then you talk softly.
What about now?
Wait one second. All right, I'm turned it up for now. Let's see how this is. I'll talk softly and I'll let Mike carry the big stick. Go ahead, Mike. Let's see what happens.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Good to go?
Yeah.
Israel's that better?
Is that okay?
Not much, but just gotta roll with it maybe.
You sure that microphone's up there, Israel, by that? Because sometimes I put it down at the corner of this. Try this, Mike.
Try that.
Testing 1, 2. How's it sound? I put the mic directly in front of my face too, so I might be a bit louder. I can't put it any closer. It'll be in my mouth, and I wouldn't believe I could talk like that.
I don't think. Yeah, you're doing the best you can, Mike. Israel, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm echoing when I talk now. That's about as good as we're gonna get.
Okay, I'll talk softer, and Mike will carry the big stick. Okay. All right, go ahead, Mike. Last week we talked about you talked about Ukraine being the staging ground. Does it really look like you were dead on the money here with the staging, aren't you?
Well, hopefully everybody can see it now. What's actually starting to take shape. You know, we've gone through months of propaganda, months of back and forward. But as everybody can see right now, certainly if they heard Zelensky speak with the president, they would have seen the dynamic that was taking place and what's actually happening. It's almost like the Ukraine is an area of forward base, if you would. And the only way, see, we're in a bad position because the only way now to stop what's happening is to pummel Russia. It's the only way. Here's the problem. Since the staging area is now set in stone, it really is. In fact, deployments have begun on both sides of the fence. And since it's already underway, somebody's going to have to preempt. Somebody will have to preempt. Putin cannot afford for NATO to set up strategically. He cannot afford for NATO to set up all the way. He can't do that. And that's going to cause a problem. So he was talking about, somebody asked him a question about a nuclear strike. Would he preempt a nuclear strike? He said, if we wouldn't preempt a nuclear strike, that means we would not use nuclear weapons. And he said, so that's not us. We will preempt. He said, because anybody who won't preempt a strike is not going to use nuclear weapons. And he said nuclear weapons are on the table for them. It is part of their strategy.
Wow.
Part of it. The same thing the USA is sending. We've already sent units into Ukraine, right? So we have special units in Ukraine. Speaking of equipment, I know they gave the announcement, but it's there. If those systems get positioned, that's going to cancel out Putin. That's going to make it very difficult for Putin to achieve his goals with Ukraine, right? But now hopefully people can see it's no longer a war with Ukraine. That's not what it is. It's a war between Russia and, well, let's go ahead and say communism and democracy is what this is a war against. This is between the West and its allies and Russia and its allies. Here's the unfortunate part, a very dangerous part. Everything is being set up right now. Deployments are starting. Putin is about to deploy yet another deadly weapon in the seas. He's already armed to the teeth. A very special vessel is being deployed right now as we speak. Another one will be deployed in a couple of days. NATO cannot afford for him to launch another one. They tried to interrupt that. It's not working. We're talking about a pretty large nuclear payload. I'm going to call it nuclear, but I'm telling you right now it's not nuclear. It's something else. I know that nuclear weapons, that's more propaganda. They are supposed to be the worst type weapon out there. It is not. A nuclear weapon in these days is more like probably it's very deadly, right? But there are other weapons out there that can do far more than a nuclear weapon ever could. But they are being deployed. The USA has to get its defense net completed. The Ukraine is part of that. So the Ukraine actually is the front door to NATO. Germany is target number one. The UK is target number two. So you have these countries out there. He will have to hit them hard, right? If he's going to win his battle with Ukraine, he's going to have to hit NATO hard. If he hits NATO hard, he's going to have to take out certain strategic sites in the USA. And here's the problem. All this is being set up. We have a government that is about to change. Now, nobody get upset because this is not about left or right now. This is, I'm telling you what's going to happen. We're going to find ourselves in a very precarious position, a very dangerous position. And at that same time, friction is going to build up in the White House. When this happens, it's going to stagnate tactical planning. Commanders are going to be angry. You're going to hear commanders call out and say, hey, we don't need the politics right now. We don't need politics. But because of arrogance and because of strong views, you're going to see certain strategies of ours stagnated. this is going to cause holes to be in our defense net. I have a strong feeling America will be hit. America will be hit this time. I think that, because I'm telling you right now, if they don't set up, things are being held back by politics right now. They're being held back. Very important strategic defense initiatives are being held back because of politics. It's only going to get worse. You have people right now who are they're standing against any support with Ukraine, any, and you're going to soon see the public's opinion shift of the Ukraine, and then it will happen. Everybody will visibly see the unthinkable happen on their televisions. That's going to sway the opinion, but by that time, it's going to be too late. We're going to have a hole in our net, and it's going to cost us big time. It's going to cost us. This time, everybody will see the results of arrogancy. See, there always comes a time when everything has to be set aside and people have to remember humanity. They have to remember the initial causes, this initial war between communism and democracy, how it began, what happened, and why it needs to be defended, or no one will have the freedoms to even argue, right?
Yeah.
Nuclear weapons are real. China has nuclear weapons. Iran has nuclear weapons. They're going to let that out of the bag. I know the USA, we talked at the beginning of the year about certain defense strategies that Israel and the USA had. They have, they were working on a joint mission for laser defense. That was part of the air defense system. Lasers, right? Just to let you know, that's incomplete. That's not complete yet. It's not field tested either. And it missed a couple targets. So they have to work on coordination of part of that defense net. We have some severe issues. We have to be a little more astute than what we are, because if the whole populace of the world hangs in the balance.
Yeah.
There's too many nuclear weapons deployed right now. Accidents are going to take place. They will take place. Somebody's not going to get that communication. Some computer system is not going to get the kill command, and all of a sudden we're going to see a launch. We could see an airburst or something like that, but this is where the mistakes will take place. Now, is this the end of the world? No. We have to remember we've gone through world wars before. Those were not the end of the world. It may seem like the end of the world, but it wasn't. And we have to be reminded of this, because a lot of people, they'll see this happening, all of a sudden they get nervous and scared. Not one Christian, not one believer should ever be scared about anything that's permitted to happen on the face of the earth. In fact, they should stand in the confines of faith, which is to say, stand up with what the Lord gave them and start to walk forward. Never go backward, just walk forward, no matter what comes, because anybody here right now, God has equipped them to be here. Nobody can be alive who's a Christian who is not equipped to handle anything that's going to be in their lifetime, right? So every Christian out there is equipped to walk through everything that's presented to them. They need not worry about, now, this is just for believers, the true believers. They don't have to worry about anything coming against them directly that's going to overtake them. That's impossible because of Christ. If that were the case, they would have been overtaken a long time ago. But they can't be overtaken. So, because this experience for us is actually is a teaching. We're royalty in training. So we have to know everything by way of truth, right? We have to live through it to make our decisions. But the rest of the world, basketball, they're going to see one of the most terrible times they ever had, because nuclear weapons are one thing. Chemical biological weapons by North Korea, that's a very real ordeal. And if you don't know, it's going to be talk and whispers about North Korea mounting chemical biological weapons on warheads.
Let's talk about that, Mike, for a minute, because I don't want to be too loud. I'm trying to balance this sound here. Kim Jong-un's sister, every now and then, I think he sends her out there to stir the pot. And she began to say, hey, look, we're about ready we're just going to start firing off intercontinental ballistic missiles. We can reach America. We certainly can hit South Korea. And so she's very upset. The United States, we flew B-52 bombers that are nuclear capable. We flew F-15s and F-22s, I should say F-22s and F-35s, really, all over South Korea. We're in a joint drill we're doing right now, which is basically a show of force. So the North Koreans seem to be very, very very
wow, no way.
agitated. At the same time, China is agitating Taiwan, and Iran just said today.
Wow, and I never knew that Israel bombed Damascus. I never knew that. Why did they do that?
Before our U.S. Congress, that Iran threatened Ukraine today, which you've always said that Russia and Ukraine, they're one and the same. So do you feel that North Korea, are they doing this on their own, or are they working in conjunction with China?
They wouldn't do anything without China's permission.
Right now it's China, North Korea, Iran, Russia, and you have eight different factions in the Middle East that are loyal to this alliance, this unholy alliance over there. So you have all these people working in tandem. They are doing things behind closed doors. They're trading weaponry, right? They're trading information, building techniques, right? They trade that also. So they're all sharing in building up an industrial complex of their own. They most certainly will act in tandem to do what they. And this girl in North Korea, she has the same heart as her grandfather, the exact same heart.
Wow.
She will do she's not one who will give a threat and will not do it, not like Kim Jong-un, right? Not like all the rest of the Kims that were in succession, but one of her grandfathers. She'll do everything she said she would do. She has no problem killing. She's been responsible for overseeing torture, a lot of people, overseeing the killings of a lot of people. She has put people to death and went to go to lunch, right? No conscience whatsoever. She is extremely dangerous. And if something happens to the short, fat guy, that's when the world is in trouble. In fact, there's already conversation that if that ever takes place, they're going to have to take her out because there's no way she can be left alive without her brother, kind of interfering. He runs interference because he's somewhat like a populist. He likes people to look at him. He likes that attention. Well, that's not so for the other one. She didn't care about attention. She's been in the background doing all that strategic work. She makes things happen. And so here we are. She's right there in the seat of power, right?
Yeah.
She will most certainly, if she gets irritated enough without a conscience, she will do what is necessary to exact whatever she needs to exact whatever enemy. So if that includes a launch towards the USA, it'll happen. If that includes bombardment of biological and chemical weapons towards South Korea, that will take place. If that includes coordinated assault, I believe it's going to be a coordinated assault against USA. Need I remind everybody that, and I'll say it again, there's no way anybody can trample Jerusalem underfoot unless the USA is out of the game. So all of us ought to sober up and start thinking about that, because nobody can go into Israel and occupy Israel for 42 months.
No.
The USA is sitting in a seat of power. We are essentially.
So when you say a coordinated, when you say a coordinated assault, I mean, are you talking China, Iran, Russia, Korea?
Yes, all of them together.
Yeah.
The technology they have a combined CNC command and control, right? They have handoff capability, which means suppose Russia gives China or China gives Russia command and control of their arsenal. That means Russia can direct the weaponry of China anywhere in the world. That means they can launch missiles from Russia, but they'll lead from China going to whatever target is entered by Russian CNC or command and control. Same thing goes for Iran. Iran has a development of several new weapons that are deadly. Any one of those nations can actually have command and control of each other. We live in a world right now where the internet governs quite a bit, or internet-based technology governs quite a bit. The borders are taken away. It does not matter if a country is separated by 2,000 miles anymore, right?
Right.
By way of computers, all this tactical equipment can be coordinated. And we're talking about the navies. We're talking about the air forces, right? They can do a CNC launch of all armament from air, sea, land, all at the same time from all those countries through one master system. It is incredible. We we have that same capability, but they can also do it. And a lot of people don't think of that. That means one person can command the armaments of anything flying in the air in the communist forces, right? Putin can do that. If they give him CNC, command and control, he can do that. He can absolutely do that.
Is Russia's morale among its soldiers as bad as the media is letting us know?
No, it isn't. There's a lot of propaganda. Again,
right.
You're always going to have disgruntled people. You also have paid actors who are very bold in Russia. Russia always has activists who are against communism, it seems, or Russia the way it is. And so what they do is they publicize some of the people who have these demonstrations. It's kind of like back in the 80s when they were not showing certain elements of Russia that were true, because they wanted people to believe in a specific way so they could accomplish, something at the end. Well, same thing is happening now. They're only going to show imagery that will cause sympathy towards Ukraine, right? That's the Western ideology. That's what they're going to support. They're not going to show the contrary. They're going to paint Putin as some sort of a devil. That's what they're going to do. They're going to continue to do this. In my opinion, they're just leaders who are doing things for their countries. No leader in the world is the same. Not one, right? Not one.
Right.
It was necessary to lead that country. By the way, there are principalities sitting in every single country that will influence those people. But these people, if we keep in mind as Christians, are also under the guise of those three unclean spirits to achieve the ultimate means found in the book of Revelation. That's another. So they're under the influence of something God is allowing that will bring about all prophecy in the end. So they're not going to make, saint decisions, so to speak. They're going to continue to operate under these influences, right? Any seat of power is going to carry one of those principalities' influence.
So you feel this? So we talk about the.
Okay, so basically, is he saying that a few of the governments are following the revelation in the book of Revelation, the timeline there? Is that what he is saying? That's what it sounds like to me.
Again, because I agree. I think that the propaganda is overboard.
Wow,
with trying to say that the Russians are all. I mean, the Russian people typically are very loyal nationalists for their nation, and they are good people. Right, they're very good, and you can't blame them for wanting to stand behind their leader and stand behind their troops, and and so some of this warmongering. And I hate to say this, but it feels like out of the West, maybe our media, maybe CNN, wants a war. It's almost like they want one. I don't know if they know what they want, or do they even know what they're going to get if they keep. Am I wrong by reading that into that?
No, because they have normally with any type of conflict, right? The USA will take a position. That will be the accepted position. It's a known fact that back in the 40s, the news media was, well, let's just say it was hired. Let's just say money dictates what the stories are going to be. They need ratings, right? The government's the only entity that can supplement veiled ratings. And so the government will always have individuals in there to put a gag order on stories they don't want, this, that, and the other, right? These guys are getting paid. So when somebody's getting paid a lot of money to tell a story, are they doing it from the heart? No, they're trying to get paid, right?
Right.
So you can influence that, and we have to remember that. We've been looking at news for so long, they keep saying the same thing. People start to believe it. But if you take note, the only ones that will speak in a neutral field are two of the news agencies in the UK. That's it. The rest of them understand that if you start talking for Putin in the USA, your ratings are going to drop.
Right.
If you talk about the Ukraine in the USA, your ratings are going to go up. All sorts of good stuff happens. And that's what rules America. They start talking about those things that will continue the dollars and the agreement. They want people to agree with things to roll in. And they have a habit of manipulating that for the people. So they just give people the drama stew, and people eat the drama stew. And if they like it, they'll pay for it. If they don't, they won't. Other countries, some other countries are not concerned about that. They understand what's going on. But I wish that everybody would watch the interview that took place yesterday so they could understand the dynamic of what's really taking place. They need to hear Joe Biden and Zelensky interact and speak, because you're going to find that somebody is under the control of the other. That's what you'll see. Everybody can clearly see this. They need to see it. It's almost like you have a subordinate, right?
Yep.
Who is speaking, but then you have you have somebody very high up who's actually on the totem pole, who's actually pretty high up. They may not speak well or anything, but they're pretty high up. And they will control and navigate that whole conversation. If people would see that, they would understand what's happening in Ukraine. I'm going to let everybody know, too, the people of Russia and the people of the Ukraine are more victims than anything else.
Amen.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Two groups.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Willing to use the people to establish their own goals.
And to that point,
this whole thing is full of darkness.
it is. I mean, okay, I watched that interview. I did. I watched it live when it happened between Zelensky and Biden. And yes, you could feel that this was, especially Biden, as if he was acting. He was almost reading from the script of what he had to say. It was as if it wasn't him. He was a total different personality in that conversation. And Zelensky also. They both were on the stage being that some groups higher than both of them was manipulating the conversation.
Zelensky follows.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, he follows.
Take note of something with Joe Biden. If something starts going off script too much, Joe has the authority to pull people back.
Yeah.
But Joe has a special authority in Washington. Now, he may not be calling all the shots, but he has a special authority in Washington. And if he ever points his finger at somebody, that's going to be the end of them.
Yeah, that's the end of it. Yeah.
He has that authority. Don't think he's up there without authority.
No.
He has a very special authority. He may not be the best tactician, but if he ever gets angry, right, then people are going to recognize this guy. Who is this, right? They're going to have a newfound respect for this guy in certain circles.
Right.
But it was a controlled situation.
Yeah.
Biden would not let the conversation go in a certain direction. He kept it. It was almost like watching a Shriners commercial. It was.
Yeah.
Almost just like that.
Yeah.
Because he was saying, how grateful he was. And I'm so grateful. And,
yeah.
All this scripted stuff. But it lets you know something. There's a plan that's underway. That plan will not be interrupted. Everything is on schedule.
Yep.
Right? And a massive death event is on the way.
Wow. What did you just... Whoa.
What did he say? Death event is on the way.
A massive death event is on the way.
Wow.
I agree with you that we have two forces, that we have the West, what we'll call democracy, whether it's a republic or democracies. And then we have the East, we'll say communism, democracy against communism, as you said to start this broadcast. And that the bigger picture, the broader scope of this whole scenario and controversy is between these two ideologies. And that you said it last week that it looks like Ukraine's the staging ground, and it may be the front line of this battle. And it looks like this battle is inevitable. It's going to happen. And you're saying there's soon. Are you anticipating a mass death event in the first half of 2023? Do you think it's that?
Yes, and not necessarily in Ukraine.
Yeah.
One of the urgent parts about this is they've already made certain decisions. Putin has said this. Putin said, listen, if you move those Patriot missile systems, right, you move those 104s in this area, we're going to take that as you attacking us, right? And clearly,
right.
That is, you can't take defensive or offensive equipment and put that in the territory of a foreign nation. You can't do that. That's a declaration of war. And so they're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Putin does not recognize Ukraine as somebody else's territory. That's his territory, period. And so that's where it's going to be. So now we have a declaration of war that's already been made. That has to be made clear. Putin is going to act because in his mind, he has to save Russia, period. No matter what anybody says, he has to save Russia. But he also knows that if they get this, if they get the Patriot system, the batteries up there, they get those missile batteries up there, they get them in full strength in that area, that could pose a big problem for him, right? That could essentially stagnate his efforts, cause him to go way around, which would mean it would take him years to do what he could do in a month. It would take him years to do otherwise. So is he going to allow them to set up all those batteries there without doing anything? No, he will not. And this is why he's making emergency deployments, right?
Yeah.
Some of the biggest, baddest machines on the earth have been sent into the ocean in the last 72 hours. We're talking the biggest, baddest machines, the worst machines ever. They have been deployed, and one will be deployed here shortly. You don't put those things into the water until you're ready to commit, because the skin of them is not like a boat. A boat you can put in the water, bring it back to dry dock, clean it off, you're good to go. Not this one. There's a type of stealth which has a lifespan in the sea. It is 100% active in the sea. The seawater even fuels this thing. So you're looking at a new, not space age stuff, not UFO. We're not talking about that. But
no.
There are certain machines that use salt water. They use the properties of salt water to cause cavity bubbles to further squeeze, and they bolster things. The shell of it, you're talking trillions of dollars just in the paint that goes around this thing, and it's in the sea. You better believe it houses an arsenal that can destroy the earth at least 30 times, the whole earth. So if you're looking at hypersonics, sea-based hypersonics, hypersonic torpedoes, right?
Yeah.
For anybody who thinks something can't travel underwater at the speed of sound, they are sadly mistaken. Yes, it can. They defeat all this resistance of water and everything else. That they have defeated that as of, what was that? That's like 10 years ago. That's older stuff they have done. So it's pretty ingenious, but they have overcome that. So they have things in the sea that can travel faster than than jets do. Let's put it that way.
Did we put those in the ocean, or did the Russians put those in the ocean? Or
the
both?
Russians put those in the oceans. Because with this stubbornness with the Patriot missile systems, here's the deal. It's one thing to put the Patriot system in the Ukraine, but that's not what they did. They advertised it. When they start advertising things, right? So you're looking at a whole different scenario. When they don't talk about something,
yeah,
that's when they are more in defensive mode. When they start advertising, that was a message that went directly to Putin.
Yeah, that was a big message, because you brought Zelensky into Washington, you parade him around like a war hero, and then you let him speak before the joint session of Congress, standing ovations and medals, and put him on Time Magazine's Man of the Year. That is really flaunting it in Putin's face.
That's provocation.
And that, oh yeah,
we're not supposed to provoke our
no, that's arrogancy.
We don't provoke our enemy.
No.
God never told us to provoke Satan. He never told us to provoke a demon. He never told us to provoke these things. We have power to overcome them, but he told us don't enter into that provocation thing. That's not up to him. And so what they're doing, what the U.S. is doing, and Western powers is they're provoking Putin to react, right? But I'm telling you right now, because of pride, they can't see. Now, they've been warned, Pascal, they've been warned from the inside by some of the most tactful minds in the business. They have been warned, don't do it. Don't go this route. But they went the route anyway. We're talking about the entire Western alliance has been warned. Don't go that route.
But they did it anyway.
They did so anyway. And so pride is going to cost us this time.
Yeah, a mass.
We've been blessed. We've been so blessed. We have not been hit. We have terrorist strikes, yes. But we haven't been hit. For an entire state would vanish. We haven't been hit like that, right? Other countries have gone through quite a bit. We have been incredibly blessed.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, Wi-Fi might have dropped out. Hang on. Yeah, Wi-Fi dropped out.
see the guy wanting to scream from the top. He's retired general, and I think he's retired 3-star general, and he just about wants to scream at the top of his lungs that some of the stuff he's seeing is stupidity. That it's that America is doing some stupidity things. Do you feel like that some of the brass? Do you think that some of the brass in our military right now is just cringing?
Yeah, they are. In fact, they're doing more than cringing. Some of these guys are crying because they understand the consequences of what's coming. You know, when two people get in an argument, right? Two people who love each other, say they get in an argument. When they get in that argument, they do love each other, but in that moment of the argument, they get so angry sometimes that in that moment they do nothing but hate each other. They see each other differently. In that same moment, each one starts to see the flaws of the other. It's almost like they have supernatural knowledge of every flaw the other person ever did, and they will fight back and forth. When they hit that point, fastball, a person cannot come in and make peace with them, right? The situation normally blows up. Feelings are hurt, things are said, and then nobody wins, and people walk away thinking they did win, but unfortunately, that's where the damage comes from. When pride is full grown, it does just what that argument will do. When pride is full blown, you cannot convince the other person to consider another way. They're always going to say, I am right.
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost like a spirit is going around in the earth saying, I'm right, and when it pops in people, all that person is concerned about is being right. And when a person is like that, they're no longer teachable. When people are no longer teachable, that's when it's over. That's when it's done. It's all said and done. It's over. And so...
it's so true, and so true what you're saying. Mike, let's shift gears a moment because of something that happened this past week since you were here Thursday. It's kind of weird. I don't say weird. It was very prophetic in my opinion. Sunday night, I got ready to do my show, and I was like, okay, I look at all the current world events, and I'm like, there's really, God, what do you want me to title this show? What do you want to be the main point? He said, earthquake in California. I said, there is no earthquake in California. Matter of fact, I went and looked at the earthquake map. There's there wasn't much going on in California. He said, you need to talk about the big one. You need to talk about it. You need to talk about what Mike's been telling you about Southern California. You need to talk about Cascadia subduction. You need to talk about San Andreas fault line. You need to talk about California. So I did. I even read an article that was 18 months old about how overdue these fault lines are. And that was the title of the show. Well, Monday night, we had some kind of mysterious wave hit the earth and crack the magnetosphere of the earth, put a huge crack in the earth's magnetosphere, allowing radiation and from the solar winds from the sun to just pour in here on the earth. And so I went and did a live broadcast just spontaneously. It was about 9 o'clock Monday evening. And I said, look, guys, this is what Mike's been saying.
Yeah, we
that
do.
These waves are coming. And they even called it, the media called it a mysterious wave. They weren't sure where it came from. If it came from the sun, they didn't know it was even released. Then I said this words. I said, folks, I'm concerned about an earthquake. I really am. And then that next morning, early Tuesday morning, it was about 2:30 in the morning, a 6.4 earthquake did hit Ferndale, California. It was the strongest earthquake in California in 3 years. 2 people died. Several highways buckled, and several buildings had damage, and 70,000 people lost power. Now, I think that God was trying to speak to me on Sunday night when he said, this is what I want you to talk about. Apparently, the Lord knew what was about going to happen. He wanted me to have some type of prophetic unction about it. I'm bringing it up to you tonight because that crack in the magnetosphere and this mysterious wave, was it a mysterious wave like from a supernova? Or is this partly what you've been telling us is coming in 2023? Is this the kind of events that are coming?
Yeah, well, think of it this way. That will be a small example of a very, if I could compare what happened, fastball, I would say that would be maybe one 100th of the strength of what's actually going to enter our heliosphere January 5th. That's 1/100th of the strength of that. And the one that hits January 5th is by no means the biggest. That's more of a, that's going to be one we can measure. But think of it this way, if this last one disrupted our magnetosphere enough where it did increase radiation levels in certain parts of the Earth where they had to divert air traffic, because they did. They closed down certain zones, no aircraft could go in that area. And it did affect the Earth because it caused clearly caused a vibrational ripple that the USGA, they did pick it up. USGS picked it up. You could see the pattern forming when you plot all that data. And it caused a ringing around the planet, right? Which means if that's 1/100th of the power, if we get one that's just simply twice as strong, right? Just twice. Now, twice as strong, it's still not going to be compared to what's coming. But that will cause a multitude of earthquakes. That's what would happen as a multitude of earthquakes. Oh, so think of it this way. If I compare it this way, that was a BB, right? And what we're about to entertain is a sledgehammer. How about that?
Okay.
So that's about the proper weight. You're looking at the weight of a BB, which is minute, compared to a 10-pound sledgehammer. That's an enormous difference. We actually have this type of phenomena coming in at that type of power potential. No one knows what this will actually. We know that it's going to be a first time of its kind.
Okay.
We know that the Earth is not. I don't think that people are properly prepared, even in their imaginations, for what that could cause. And then we do have a weakening of the crust of the Earth. And if the coast plate, if it crumbles just a little, it's going to set loose a chain of events that's going to just scar people's memories for a long time. Because California cannot take a quake. You have, in fact, the Midwest cannot take quakes, not of that magnitude. I know that people think that that's very strong old rock. It is not. That is floating rock. That's not even solid rock. And of course, they found that out because they have better equipment. So basically, America is floating rock. It is not solid down to the core. And when they started, through fracking, they suspected this. But when they started learning more and more about it, there were a bunch of scientists that said, "You got to stop right now." That's what all that fuss was about. Because they said, "You're gonna set this thing loose." And what they were finding out, the Grand Canyons totally being dislodged through small fractures that were being made in the Earth. Now, if a small fracture can do that, because we sit on a floating continent, then what do you think would happen with one of these major buckling of plate tectonics? We're gonna entertain this. It's coming. It's just what's going to take place, and it really takes with great responsibility, with a lot of detail. Pascal, this will have to be charted out. With real satellite imagery, real optics going through the Earth, meaning the actual data. And we're pressing for that. We need the actual data. In other words, we need the real photographs that look about half a mile in the Earth. We need the real data, and we're trying to petition for that so that people understand, number one, America's on a floating continent, that science is so prideful. They won't even admit that they have misjudged quite a few things, right? It's time for people to have facts, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They need facts. They don't need theory. They need facts. And when good people have bad data, that just gets to me. Because I see good people all the time, and they'll have bad data. And then they'll build upon that bad data. Well, of course, the results are not going to quite be there. That burns me up.
Okay, now.
Facts, and we need to, we also had to be responsible, Pascal, because I'll say it again. We have entered into a time where massive death will take place. Each event is going to cause a lot of death.
Now wait, which event are we talking now?
Don't be afraid of death, nobody.
Okay, now, which event are we talking about? We're not talking about the mass death event from the war. You're talking about a different event, and this is from the impact from these waves. Our heliosphere, January 5th, is going to get whacked. This thing is going to enter into. We don't know what that's going to do to the Earth, do we, on January 5th? No. What is the?
It's going to enter into the heliosphere, right? So
okay.
Of course, there's going to be a delay from getting from the heliosphere to the Earth and the Sun. It will cause the Sun to react.
And then we don't know what.
We don't know what it's going to do. We know it's enormous.
How long do we have to wait from January 5th? From January 5th, when this hits, till it finally gets to the sun and then it affects us. How much time will there be between the initial January 5th? Oh, okay, we got a day. So really, and we're going to know something within 24 to 48 hours of this thing.
Yeah, we'll know exactly. Now, there have been events in the past where things have happened and it was benign, right? The sun just kind of absorbed it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to do. This is very exotic matter. This is not like, something people are.
Is this from an explosion somewhere? Is this from a supernova or some kind of massive
They
explosion?
don't think so. It's not like a quasar. It's not like a magnetar. It's not like some superburst in a galaxy or something like that. This is very exotic and strange. In fact, some of the spectrographs came back on this thing. The data is unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. In other words, nobody's really prepared to deal with this. They've only seen something similar to this, which caused very negative effects on the global populace about 4 months after it happened. They didn't really tell anybody either, because how do you tell somebody that? People have health problems to this very day because of something that happened back in 1982, and they don't really talk about it. It came from out in space. It affected quite a few people on the Earth. They know what the symptoms are and what it has actually done, but no one dares speak about it. It's a real gag order on things like that. So we have another one coming in, right? But we also have things behind it. This is important. This would be one of the elements that makes up her the bigger ones. Some of these bands that are coming in are flat, and they are tall, and they are super wide. They're just spreading all over the place, right? They are emanating from one location.
Planet X?
From 2 or 3 locations are coming from one location.
Planet X?
And it's pulsing out some stuff right now. I mean, it's pulsing out some stuff. And so it's only, that gives us a good idea that we're in the season of real change. Because this thing, now they're picking up continual pulses. Something is very different.
So,
mind you, in any binary system, the secondary star, as it gets closer, it speeds up, right? It'll double it. It's almost like it doubles its speed every 72 hours. It's going to double its speed, right? Then exponentially get faster. A lot of people may not see it. They will see a very odd constellation. They're going to see a different constellation.
Okay.
They're going to see something they don't want to see.
So this thing is tied to Planet X or the binary system that's coming.
Yeah, certainly tied to something that's tied to our solar system, and it's pulsing out, it's actually sending matter in our direction. Well, that means we're right there in the season of that matter exchange between the two stars, which means the sun, when that matter exchange takes place, all the photons are going to be redirected to the other star. That's going to be darkness on the Earth, or we're going to have a red planet on the Earth. Everything will look red.
Yeah, because it's changed the atmosphere. It changes because of photons. You're saying
when photons are redirected.
Yeah.
Infrared light, right? Infrared light being in the frequency it's still going to emit to Earth, right? Which means everything will be red, everything will be hot. It's going to look like that. It can look like that for several days. It can look like that for 27 days. It can look like that for 60 days, right? It depends on how long it takes for this matter exchange of the two stars to actually happen, right?
Are we going to see this exchange?
Hopefully we're not in the way of that exchange, because I don't see it surviving. I don't see anything surviving if they're in the way of that proton exchange.
Are we going to experience this redness in 2023? Is this event going to happen?
Yeah, fastballs like this, because of its proximity, it could very well take place at any time in 2023. But I'll tell you this, when it happens, right?
Yeah.
That's when the real bad stuff will also begin to happen shortly right after that. Not before it, right after that. There's super bad stuff. Now, super bad stuff would mean the pressure changes in the Earth enough to cause the water to boil off. Water can boil off the Earth when your temperature is only 70 degrees. All you need is a pressure change. And we have something affecting the atmosphere. That means no one will be able to breathe on the coastlines. That means people will have to go into rocks and caves or anywhere in the Earth just so they can breathe and escape some of the hostile gases and all this other stuff that will be floating in the atmosphere.
Yeah, and do you see then there'll be this hostile environment, which you called an ash environment at one point? Is that kind of when that goes into play? Here's my thing: low pressure systems create massive storms. Okay, which we're right now. This storm over America. I remember a year ago you told us, watch a storm, and there'll be storms that will completely cover the entire nation. And that's what we're dealing with right now. We've never seen anything like this, really. They're calling it a cyclone bomb. But literally, this storm is reaching from one coast to the other and from north to the south. This is incredible. Is this because low pressure systems are going to get so enormous, it has to affect weather conditions?
Yeah, they will, because we have a 2% change in our atmosphere. Right?
Wow.
That 2% change, it increases the potential of storms. The evaporation of the water is part of that change in the atmosphere, which means clouds are going to be more numerous, which means the atmosphere is going to have more potential to hold that moisture and then drop it on everything. So everything is about to get supersized, right? That's only one part of it. That's one little piece. It'll get pretty bad though, because even that will be doubled. So imagine a storm, Pastor Paul, right? Imagine a storm, like a bad thunderstorm with supercells, all that spans from Texas all the way up to Canada.
Right?
Say it that way. I mean, we're talking about full of tornadoes all the way up from Texas, all
the way to Canada.
Right? That's what they're doing. Remember we talked about the names for some of the storms.
Yep.
Like Hypercane.
Yep.
Hypercane is on the list.
Yeah.
People aren't get ready for this. The reason it's on the list is because they have determined, they've already calculated wind speeds. This year, they reported wind speeds that are unbelievable. I'm not even going to utter them because they sound unbelievable. Though we've talked about them before here on air. We've talked about them before.
Yep.
But it actually reached those sustained wind speeds, right? So I'll tell you what, in 2023, some of the real preparations, not only war. War is just part of it, right? Famine is going to be a big deal. Loss of animals and food and foliage is going to be a big deal. That's going to be a big deal. The water, we're still going to have a type of dryness take place due to the induction of certain types of radiation, plus flooding. The water event, I suspect, will happen this year. This year will be the water event, I suspect. Now, they could be totally wrong. It's just that everything is pointing towards that.
Right.
And what the water event is, that's a rise in the ocean levels without an earthquake, without
a tsunami.
Anything slamming into it.
We'll
probably have a big water event. We'll also have a water event caused by something slamming into the sea.
That's coming. That's coming.
That's going to be bad. We're going to see a lot of that. A lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
Do you mean his volume, Diane? Yeah, he's hard to hear.
Loud and
yeah.
the guys know.
And folks, those of you who saw the webinar we did, Mike really goes into detail in this and shows you this with a map, which is an extraordinary map, and talks about these water events, talks about a water event that's going to come, but talks about a lot of things with these volatile areas of volcanism, the earth pulling apart, magma rising to the surface, a lot of different things. It's an extraordinary webinar that I highly recommend you get a copy. You can order the DVD on it. They're being produced right now. So as soon as they get in, we're going to be shipping those to folks. So you can order your DVD of that webinar. And I highly recommend you get it. Not just only because of Mike's presentation, but the other guys as well. It's just extraordinary all the way through it. But Mike shows you a map that the public has never seen, only been seen on our webinar. And I think that when you see that, you learn that, and you hear the presentation, you hear Mike's explanation. That's why I'm staying on top of this story more than I have anything else. I'm watching closely. This is the war being staged. I saw it this week, Mike. I saw what you said Thursday, literally being staged in front of our eyes. And I'm still not sure the American populace notices it or understands it.
I don't think they do.
They're going to wake up one day. There's going to be an event, as you've said earlier tonight, a death event.
Early in the morning.
A death event that's going to shock the world? Is that about to happen?
Yeah. You know what, Basketball, I think that early one morning, people are going to wake up. People are going to notice that everybody's trying to find a computer, a phone, or something to look at and they'll be saying, "I can't believe it happened." They're going to look at their screens with despair, with disbelief. I think that will open up a very different time for people, and it's painful to see something like that. It's painful because for the most part, we deny everything until it happens.
Yeah.
And when it happens, it brings on a new horizon. But you know what? Wisdom comes into this part. With all that, all of us being human, with all that we did not believe, we should learn by now that we should not invest our time in disbelief of things, rather simply to follow wisdom. You know what, Pascal, the Lord gives you a lot of wisdom. The Lord gives Israel a lot of wisdom. The Lord is giving out wisdom, and if people would just listen for the Lord's voice in that wisdom, with all of what comes, they may see quite a few things, right?
Yep.
But here's my point. There are many who have seen even more things. Even though this is going to be the crescendo of all times, right? There have been people who survived World War I, World War II, right? Vietnam, the Korean War, all these different conflicts, the droughts, right? The dust storms, the financial apocalyptic times in the 1920s, the Great Depression. They have survived it, but it was a learning lesson. And in all cases, it brought sincerity back to humanity. Because in every single case after these times, people actually cared about their neighbor again. And every time we get to the point where we could care less about our neighbor, guarantees something in the world will happen. This time, though, all the ministers are speaking the same thing. This has never happened before. It has never happened like this before. Regardless of people's theology or what they believe in, they're all talking about Revelation.
Yeah.
Even some of the ones who refuse to talk about Revelation cannot ignore. They're trying to get this happy message. And the people in the pews, I saw something recently. Somebody was trying to give a happy message. And the people in the pews all had Grinch frowns on their face. Like, why is he talking about that?
Yeah.
And we can clearly see the tension building and the iniquity building. And so people are starting to wake up.
Yeah.
But this is intended. This is part. Revelation to an unbeliever is scary. But to a believer, Revelation is
It's
a book of
exciting.
deliverance of ultimate
Amen.
deliverance. It is not a book where all the believers get enslaved. That's Hollywood drama stuff. A Christian starts out in tribulation. They do. It's called their life. And tribulation is indeed the life of a Christian. If your life has not been tribulation, then you've been on the wrong side. That period.
Right.
That's what it works. Because Jesus made that clear. So people shouldn't be frightened of that. Plus, this is those things that we can't give up, that we keep stumbling over. I guarantee you these times that are coming up are going to help us get rid of everything we stumbled over. Because everything false that we ever believed in, the Lord will remove it from us. He's cleaning us up for the final deliverance. This is when he presents us to himself. But I do believe this. He's cleaning us up. I've searched history. I've been through all history I could ever find. Never in a time have I seen the Lord present the same issue to all people. I've never seen that except the great flood.
Wow.
What I mean by that
Yes.
is the Lord is exposing. He's all this iniquity that people see upon the earth. He's allowing all that to happen for people to indulge in their own iniquities. He does this right before he shows it's absolutely right before the penalty of their iniquity comes. They are engaged in it. When the penalty comes, they'll say, "Oh, that's terrible." See, that's how we learn.
Yep.
We don't give up anything until it bites us. When it bites us, we'll tell somebody else, "Don't ever touch that because that hurts," right?
Yep.
If it does not bite us, we'll warn no one, right?
Yep.
All this iniquity and everything else rising in the earth, it's almost clear what the Lord is doing. He's about to deliver his children. And so he's bringing everybody through this process. The whole world's involved, not just one region, all regions. The whole world's involved. But what makes it different now than ever before is you have people, not necessarily people who never heard of Christ. You actually have people that say, "Don't talk to me about Christ." See, that didn't happen.
Yeah, Diane, I say it like I'm going to get an answer from him. I do that all the time.
Like that before.
No.
You have people out there that said, "Well, I know about Christ, but I'm going to go ahead and do this." But now you hear people rejecting him. They already heard the message, and that's the key. They already heard the message. They already heard the message. And in the Bible, it says the gospel of the kingdom must be preached throughout all the earth, not accepted. It never said it had to be accepted. It said it had to be preached for
Exactly.
And people are now in that mode of rejection because a witness can be out there for so long, and then when the rejection comes, what does God do every single time? He withdraws that witness, and that's exactly what we see. And well, I can't go any further, but we see things that have never happened before, and all we have to do is step back. If we can step out of bias, not be for or against anything in the world, but simply stand in the kingdom, we start to see a truth. The same truth Jesus Christ preached this entire time. You can see it so clearly. But it really takes a lot of work because it's almost like you have to betray the world. And that's not so easy to do, just in case people think they can just snap their fingers and walk out of the world. No, you can't. Because a lot of our habits, attitudes, support, and everything else is found in the world.
We're in the world.
The Lord is breaking us loose.
Yeah, we're in the world, Jesus said, but we're not of the world.
Yeah.
Okay, but we still are in it, but we're not of it. But we still live in it. So we just serve a higher power. We serve a Savior who's on our side. And that, folks, never lose focus of that. Don't be afraid. Remember what Moses said when they saw the Red Sea, and they said, how are we going to get across it? And we can see Pharaoh coming, and Moses said, stand still. Fear not. He said, fear not. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. So that's exactly what we have to do is fear not. Stand still and watch. You're going to see the salvation of the Lord. Mike, appreciate tonight. Next Thursday night, it's going to be almost the end of the year. It's going to be the 29th of December. We're going to have to take a reflection of this year and a focus on the future. And what's going to happen between now and next
We're going
week?
to be preparing. That's what's going to happen. I think a lot of people are going to start preparing. Our next conversation, people may be nervous in the service during that time. In other words, some truth may come forward that is just a, somewhat like, what do people call it? An omen, some marker is going to come forward. A lot of people will begin to prepare. One of the most notable things of basketball, some of these celestial happenings will no longer have to chart out. People will see it with their own eyes. They're about to experience what they thought they never would. Right?
That's going to make a believer. That's going to make a believer out of some of us. That's right.
The fires are coming. They are coming. And there's nothing anybody can do about that except for our Father.
Amen. Mike, I appreciate you coming in tonight. This has been a powerful broadcast. Great insight, great information, and great preaching. I appreciate it so much.
Well, God bless basketball. Hopefully everybody can get over the volume issue.
They will when I get back in the studio. It's not your fault, it's mine. I'm on the road. It's a little difficult, but
you're not near water, are you?
Don't ask me. Don't ask me to look out my window. Don't even ask me to look out my window. Do you want to hear the roar?
You're near water?
Do you want to hear the roar of the hang on a second, everybody. It's not you hear the roar.
Okay, I think that's all from Mike.
In order to warn future generations. These ancient prophecies foretell a messenger will precede the release of the great evil, known to the Hebrews as Leviathan, but to the Egyptians as Apophis.
Welcome back to Skywatch TV.
Diane, I get in trouble off Gabe sometimes because I talk to the TV and she thinks I'm talking to her, but I'm actually talking to the TV. So I do the same.
Today we continue our special investigative series on the exciting, groundbreaking new documentary film by Josh Peck called Ragnarok, Humanity's Last Stand. Today we're going to discuss the ancient prophecies of the enigmatic group known as the Essenes, who accurately predicted the year of the death of our Lord Jesus. and how their prophetic calendar ties into the arrival of Apophis. But before we do that, watch this.
Bible prophecy, in my experience, is to be taken literally, and metaphor is God's way of allowing a human to interact with those prophecies.
Not many real metaphors, though.
Metaphor is not just a bold-faced statement of what God is going to do. It's God's way of saying, I want you to read my word, and I want you to learn how I think, and I want you to apply that to the metaphors that you're reading in a given prophecy. And what you end up with is a much broader prophetic interpretation than would be the case if God just said, I'm going to do this.
What's interesting is if Apophis were to ever strike the earth, we have 3 possible dates to consider. According to NASA, Apophis is scheduled to fly by the Earth in April of 2029, March of 2036, and April of 2068, with the closest approach occurring in 2029. Now, the amazing thing about all these dates is they fit within an ancient prophetic calendar detailing the final 50 years of our current age.
My name is Ken Johnson. I've been a Christian for quite a while. Wanting to learn more about doctrine, I started studying the early church fathers, and they led me to studying the Dead Sea Scrolls. Putting the two together really completes the picture in a lot of things. So the past couple of years, I've been studying the Dead Sea Scrolls intensely. I've produced a few books on their doctrines, which is the main thing I was focusing on. And I think it's really important for us today.
Starting a little before the 1st century AD, there existed a mysterious group of Jewish scribes and priests that lived in a place called Qumran. It's an area separated from the rest of the Jewish community in Israel. They referred to themselves as the children of light, and they claimed that they were the only ones using the correct solar calendar system mandated by God. The other religious leaders in Israel at that time, the Pharisees and Sadducees, they were called the children of darkness due to their use of a pagan lunar calendar system and their rejection of things important to God, such as prophecy inspired by the Holy Spirit and what they called the Testaments of the Patriarchs, which they claimed contained the first writings of mankind. The strange thing is, this group seemed to disappear sometime in the 1st century. Now, in the 1940s, archaeologists discovered some of the left-behind writings of this now 2,000-year-old community, which we know today as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Based on what we learned from their writings and other historical documents, such as those from Josephus and Hippolytus, we now refer to these enigmatic Jewish believers as the Essenes.
The word Essenes actually means healers. And people get confused a lot because the Essenes are the followers of the Zadok priests. They're also the Zadok priests. For instance, Paul was a Pharisee, but he was not a priest because he's of the tribe of Benjamin. Same kind of thing. So you've got the Zadok priests that are doing priestly stuff in Qumran and in Alexandria, Egypt, and then their followers are the Essenes. In general, it's the name of the movement.
According to the calendar of the Essenes, human history can be understood in terms of 4 ages, with the final age being what's called a Sabbath or a rest of 1,000 years. Each of the other 3 ages are 2,000 years each, all of which totals to 7,000 years of human history on Earth. Each of the 2,000-year ages are split into 4 500-year periods called onas, and each ona is split into 10 cycles of 50 years called jubilees. It's commonly believed that in the 1st century, no Jew understood what the Messiah would be, when he would come, or what he would do. And in fact, when you read some ancient Jewish commentaries from the time, there were differing ideas of who the Messiah might be, such as a great military leader or even the Archangel Michael. But according to the Dead Sea Scrolls, specifically the Melchizedek scroll, which has been dated to about 100 years before the time of Christ, the Essenes understood the Messiah would be God in the flesh, would come to forgive sins, and all this would happen in, quote, the first week of the Jubilee that occurs after the 9th Jubilee. Which, if we do the math and apply their calendar, it corresponds perfectly to the exact time of Jesus Christ and his death on the cross.
They were known to be 100% accurate prophets. You even see this from like Josephus and several other historians. And it makes sense because the Bible says if someone claims to be a prophet and they're not 100% accurate, you put them to death. They kept the school of the prophets, which for our purposes is keeping the Old Testament and multiple copies of it, and then all of the temple library, all the extra prophecies, the genealogies, the chronologies, historical documents, commentaries, things like that. So that's basically what they did. That's what the sons of the prophets are, actually, the order that keeps all the records.
According to this prophetic calendar, the 4 ages of human history are first, the age of chaos, which begins at creation and ends at the time of the Lord calling Abraham to establish a nation through his lineage, which leads to the second age, the age of Torah, which begins with Abraham and ends in the time of Christ and the destruction of the temple. And then that kicks off the age of grace, which is the time we're living in now. It's important to know the end of one age and the beginning of the next typically revolve around a final jubilee filled with important prophetic events, rather than an exact final ending date for an age. For example, according to the Essene calendar, the technical final date of the age of Torah and beginning of the age of grace was our year 75 AD. But we would typically understand the age of grace or the church age as beginning either with the start of Jesus' ministry or his death or his resurrection or the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. However, all of these things happened within that final jubilee of the age of Torah, which would have been between 25 AD and 75 AD.
They said that the Messiah would come to die for our sins, and that would happen in 32 AD. And it happened as prophesied. The sign of which it happens is that the veil of the temple would be ripped in half. Lots of things like that. There's a lot of extra biblical prophecies that they talk about, 90% of which focuses on the first coming. But you can understand, if you believed all this, and then you saw the veil of the temple ripped, there was this guy named Yeshua. He was supposed to be named Yeshua, according to Isaiah 12. And then all the other stuff that happened, the healing of the blind, the raising of the dead, the timing, 32 AD, the very next Pentecost was supposed to begin the age of grace with a Holy Spirit and new stuff, whatever the new stuff is. And they very much looked forward to this. So you can understand when 32 AD comes, and there was a guy named Yeshua, and there were healings, and there's a death, burial, and resurrection. And then the veil of the temple is ripped in half. That takes a long time to fix. You would instantly believe. You would come at that next Pentecost to the temple, and you would hear Peter talking. You'd probably interrupt him and say, yeah, whatever. Now, tell me how to become a follower of Messiah. You know, we've been waiting for this our entire lives. And so that's basically what happened. So the Essenes basically became Christians and took the call very seriously and went out and pastored churches.
Beautiful.
And there's all sorts of records of all the different people that pastored churches in different places. That's why you need to tie in the church fathers into the Dead Sea Scrolls to get a complete picture of the history.
The amazing thing is right now, according to this calendar, we are coming up to the final jubilee of our age of grace. This final jubilee would begin in the year 2025 and end, along with the entire age, in 2075.
But who says it's going to go on? It could end any time.
Would then begin the final 1,000-year Sabbath age, the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. Now,
Nicorette quickness starts to relieve cravings.
Okay, get off the
Nicorette, do something amazing.
Oh boy, that is a big result.
Now, from the prophetic text of the Bible, such as the book of Daniel, Revelation, and others, we know we still have a lot that needs to happen before the end of our current age. We have a rapture, 7-year tribulation full of prophetic events, and the return of Jesus Christ on earth. If the Essenes are right, then all of this should occur within the next 55 years or so before 2075. However, we must remember, Jesus came very early in the final jubilee of the age of Torah. So, might he also return early in the final jubilee of our age?
100%.
They understood the age of the law of Moses would end in 75 AD, and they were looking very much forward to entering the age of grace, in which things would change. But it's interesting because they had a teaching that there was a Melchizedekian version of the Passover. Then there was the Mosaic version, which is the Seder that you and I probably know about. And then in the age of grace, there was going to be a new form, and we would call that Christian communion. And in the kingdom, it's going to be changed again, and there's going to be a new form. So they looked at everything as dispensational. Everything comes in ages or in sections, and you need to keep doing what God has told you to do until he tells you to do otherwise. So they were very careful to continue the law of Moses and await Messiah.
If we believe the Apophis asteroid is the prophesied wormwood, then we have a few different possibilities on how this all could work out. We could see the start of the tribulation right at the beginning of our final Jubilee in the fall of 2025, with Apophis striking about 3.5 years later in April of 2029. However, if 2029 comes and goes without incident, the next possibility is the start of the tribulation in the fall of 2032, with Apophis arriving in March of 2036. And lastly, we could have the start of the tribulation in 2064, with Apophis striking in 2068. Any of these scenarios are possible, or it's possible none of these are correct, and we'll see how it all fits together when the time comes. But what is interesting is, of these three scenarios, the one that seems to fit best is 2029. If Apophis were to strike the earth in 2029, and if that is the fulfillment of the wormwood prophecy, and if that does occur in the middle of the tribulation, then not only do we have the tribulation beginning in 2025 at the start of the final Jubilee of this age, but we also have the tribulation ending in 2032. Now, that is significant because according to the Essenes and biblical texts, Jesus was crucified in 32 AD and fulfilled the spring feasts. So how interesting would it be if he returns exactly 2,000 years later, which we now know is the length of an age, right to the year 2032 to come back and fulfill the fall feasts, right where he left off before the age of grace?
We cannot know the day or the hour, but who said anything about the month or the year? I think the feast days are both prophetic and narrative in scope. That is to say, they lay out the activities both predicted and expected and failed by the Israelites. They are God's standard. Even though they're metaphoric, it's also a set of rules saying that this is what I expect of you, and if you keep it, you'll be blessed, and if you don't, you will be cursed. And the Bible is full of that sort of activity.
When my book, The Wormwood Prophecy, and then a year later, The Messenger, came out, I was on various television shows describing how evangelical dispensationalists and some Catholic prophecy believers might find the timing of the Apophis Wormwood impact date, April 13, 2029, ominous regarding a possible rapture of the church as being soon to occur.
As this is being recorded, I've never seen a time when people are trying to guess the date of the rapture, and they've all got their own calculations. It's going to be this season, it's going to be Tabernacles, it's going to be Pentecost. I've never heard so much guesswork in all my life. I love it. I think people should be guessing. In other words, it shows that now there is a certain interest in Bible prophecy that maybe wasn't as pronounced as before.
Now, for those who may not know, the rapture is the eschatological or end times event when all true Christians who are alive will be transformed into glorious bodies in an instant and joined by the resurrection of dead believers who ascend with them into heaven. During one of the program recordings on Skywatch television, as I was making the case that, depending on one's position, the asteroid's impact date, as first set by NASA, could place the last possible timing of a pre-tribulation rapture happening around October 13, 2025. And as I was doing that, if you go watch the program's archive, you'll see Skywatch television host Derek Gilbert studying something on his MacBook.
I remember that.
Me, while I was talking, he was searching a Hebrew calendar and checking whether anything interesting would be happening 3.5 years before the date I was talking about, involving when Apophis will strike the earth. He was doing that because prophecy believers believe the wormwood event will happen in the middle of a 7 years of great tribulation. So you back up 3.5 years earlier, and he's trying to see if there's anything interesting going on then.
Tom, you mentioned 3.5 years. If we take this impact as the midpoint of the 7-year period, if you back up 3.5 years from that, you wind up in the fall of 2025. And I just want to point out the Feast of Tabernacles falls between October 7th and 13th of 2025. Add 3 years and 6 months, and you're right at April 13th of 2029.
Will a pre-tribulation rapture, catching away of the saints, happen 3.5 years before the arrival of Apophis, if it is wormwood? Well, what Derek discovered raised the hair on my neck.
Well, knowing that the Jewish calendar, that the feasts were oriented, synchronized with a lunar calendar. Okay, 3.5 years, the big festivals in the Jewish calendar are always in the spring and in the fall. Passover in the spring, Feast of Tabernacles in the fall, Sukkot. So I quickly looked back 3.5 years to see if that's the midpoint of the Great Tribulation, 3.5 years earlier, the beginning of the Great Tribulation, when we as believers in a pre-tribulation rapture would then be looking for Jesus Christ's second coming on that date. And sure enough, it falls on day 7 of the Feast of Tabernacles in 2025.
Just a few days before that will be the Feast of Trumpets. Now, both of these festivals are strongly tied by prophecy experts to the rapture of the church, which raises the question that, if I'm correct, that the asteroid of Revelation 8 will impact the earth in 2029, will the tribulation rapture occur 3.5 years earlier during the prophetic Feast of Tabernacles, or a few days earlier than that during the prophetic Feast of Trumpets, placing the church in the marriage supper of the Lamb in heaven for the real Feast of Trumpets, gathering around the house of God, as was mirrored in the Old Testament. Now, time's going to tell if I'm right, but if nothing else, our appointment with Apophis is an urgent reminder that we, the church, must get busy fulfilling our Lord's command to make disciples of all nations, because time is growing short.
This is how I used to get paid. Post email. Your invoice is now $300.
We're in studio today with the producers of the highly anticipated new documentary, Ragnarok. But before we discuss the film, we want to show you how you can get your copy of this groundbreaking documentary right now.
There exists an ancient prophecy about a great burning mountain that falls from the sky, bringing devastation to the world. And the signs of its coming have now appeared. Skywatch TV is proud to present the Ragnarok Blockbuster Bundle. When you order Josh Peck's new documentary film, Ragnarok, Humanity's Last Stand, from the Skywatch TV store, you'll also receive the never-before-seen exclusive DVD content, Ragnarok, Destruction Unveiled, and Ragnarok, Mountains of Judgment, in the new documentary film, Ragnarok, Humanity's Last Stand. Visionary filmmaker Josh Peck takes you on a journey through the ancient prophecy from the book of Revelation about a burning mountain that falls from the sky, bringing devastation to the world, and what scientists and NASA have to say about it. In this explosive documentary film, you will learn how the wormwood prophecy connects to our modern age, whether the coming asteroid Apophis could be the harbinger of destruction, the science, history, and prophecies surrounding asteroid impact, Dr. Thomas Horn's full end-times vision of destruction, what NASA is saying about Apophis, and what we can do about this threat. You'll also receive the behind-the-scenes interview, Ragnarok, Destruction Unveiled, where Skywatch TV's own Drew Graffia sits down with visionary filmmaker Josh Peck to talk about his filmmaking process. What goes into a project of this magnitude? What his initial reaction to Dr. Thomas Horn's end times vision was, and what it is like to handle such apocalyptic material. But that's not all. We're also including the never-before-seen content entitled Ragnarok, Mountains of Judgment, where you will take a deep dive into the prophecy and science behind asteroids, and how this relates to the coming space rock named after the Egyptian god of chaos, Apophis. Sold separately, these items hold a retail value of over $75. Yours now for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. So uncover the prophecies of destruction and learn the mysteries of the last days. This collection is available only through Skywatch TV, so don't delay. The Ragnarok Blockbuster Bundle, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4995.
The film is called Ragnarok, Humanity's Last Stand, and we're joined by the director, Josh Peck.
Thanks, Joe.
Producer, Tom Horn.
Good to be here.
And Skywatch TV's very own Drew Graffia.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you once again for joining me, gentlemen. We got to hit the ground running, Josh, because there's never enough time to do these properly. But in part 3 of the film, talking about Ragnarok, you and Dr. Ken Johnson talk about the Essenes and their prophetic calendar. Can you briefly explain how the Essenes understood human history and why their calendar is so important?
The Essene calendar is so important because it's the biblical calendar, and not just in ancient history, but in prophecy too. So the Bible uses the same calendar throughout the whole thing. Now in the New Testament, there were 2 calendars going on. So in the Gospels, you get a little bit of that. But by and large, it's the Essene calendar. That's what we call it today, even though the Essenes were just using something that Jewish people were using thousands of years before that.
Okay.
So why it's important is we can apply this to prophecy. There's a whole bunch of prophecy in Daniel and Revelation that gives us day counts. We can use those day counts with the Essene calendar to try to predict when some of this stuff might happen. Now, what's really interesting is it wasn't only a yearly calendar. They also had this view of human history. They saw all of human history as a span of 7,000 years, split up into ages and onas and jubilees and all these words that we don't have time to really get into. But the main thing that they showed was that throughout these ages last 2,000 years, there was a period of about 50 years, a jubilee, at the end of these ages that was a transition point to the next one. Well, according to the Essenes, the age of grace that we live in now started in 75 AD. So 2075 should be the end of our 2,000-year age, but back up 50 years because we have a transition point, 2025. So we have 2025 to 2075. Well, what's interesting is Apophis is supposed to hit in 2029, specifically in April.
Okay.
If the Essenes are right about 2025, if we have this transition point, and if the tribulation actually starts there, that puts Apophis right in the middle where it's supposed to belong.
And the thing is, Josh, the Essenes, I guess in the last few years, well, me and even a lot of archaeologists and scholars have become excited by the recognition of how accurate their prophecies really were.
Yeah.
And we examined some of those in this documentary film. We also examined them in the book, The Messenger, which is featured in this film. That was the part that was striking to me. And then the thought comes to me, well, if they were that accurate, right, all throughout ancient history, saying when Jesus would arrive, the year 32 AD, when he would be crucified, for them to have been that accurate, if they're now saying, and they are, that in the year 2025, mankind is going to enter into its last era, its last jubilee. And that's 3.5 years before the arrival
of what I believe to be wormwood. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that makes a hair stand up on the back of your neck. But there's one other place in the film, I don't even know if you can do it as quickly as you need to, but you also pinpoint how it would be 2,000 years exactly by the end of that era. That Jesus would be set to return, right?
Yeah, so this is amazing. So the Essenes accurately predicted down to the year that 32 AD when Jesus would be crucified, well, the Messiah, when the Messiah would be crucified and die for our sins. Well, what's amazing about that is, yes, if you add 2,000 years to that, which we now know is the length of an age, that's 2032. That's 7 years after 2025, and that's 3.5 years after Wormwood, if Wormwood is the Apophis asteroid. So that all lines up perfectly with the tribulation, if the tribulation does actually start in 2025.
It's amazing. It's all laid out in the film, but it's one of those points in the film where people are just going to have their mind blown. I also want to make very quick mention, in addition to the Ragnarok DVD, there's also a couple of other DVDs in this package that we're offering. Drew, tell us a little bit about the bonus content.
Sure. With making a movie, there's often a lot of stuff left over. And what we did was we compiled a lot of the material Josh filmed concerning asteroids and prophecy and put them together on a disc. So it's the stuff that couldn't make it into the film due to time restraints, and that's called Mountains of Judgment.
So this is exclusive content. They're not going to find anywhere else.
No, completely exclusive. Now, the other one is called Ragnarok Destruction Unveiled. Now, what this is I sit down with Josh Peck and we talk about what goes into making a film like this from the production standpoint, and also things like what is it like to deal with such apocalyptic material.
Right.
So that also is exclusive content completely behind the scenes.
So all 3 DVDs, full-length productions in and of themselves, all available in this very special opportunity for your donation of $35 plus shipping and handling. Thankfully, we will return to continue this conversation next week. Unfortunately, right now, we're all out of time. Gentlemen, Drew, Josh, Tom, thank you once again for joining us. I'm Joe Horn. Keep your eyes on the prize, which is Jesus Christ. We'll be back next week.
Okay, guys, I'm out too. I'm going 2 hours early tomorrow, and I'm going to do Christmas carols because I've got Christmas lunch in the afternoon. So okay, guys, God bless.
Were to strike the earth, the first thing that would happen is all that energy would be driving down